could you please give the invocation this evening?
Okay, let's bow our heads. Holy and righteous Father, we magnify your name and give you all of our praise tonight. We thank you for your presence in this place. We have many new members in our council. We are in a new day and a new way. The old has passed away. We thank you, Lord, that you are doing a new thing in our midst, and there are wells springing in the desert. Freeport will prosper again, spiritually and economically. The word of the Lord in Romans 12:9-18 says, "Let love be without hypocrisy. Hate what is evil. Be kindly affectionate to one another with brotherly love in honor, giving preference to one another, not lagging in diligence, be in diligence, fervent in spirit, serving the Lord, rejoicing in hope, patient in tribulation, continuing steadfastly in prayer. Bless those who persecute you and do not curse. Rejoice with those who rejoice. Weep with those who weep. Be of the same mind toward one another. Do not set your mind on high things, but associate with the humble. Do not be wise in your own opinion. Repay no one evil for evil. Have regard for good things in the sight of all men. If it is possible, as much as depends on you, live peaceably with all men." So, Father, we thank you for the wisdom of your words and pray that they will be active and practiced among all who sit here in council, in all dealings with other leaders in our community. May your peace and wisdom abide as the business is presented, discussed, and voted upon this evening. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Linda. So now we'll officially call this meeting to order. Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll?
Mayor Miller,
Here.
Alderpersons Clem,
Here.
Monroe is absent, Simmons.
Here.
Parker is absent, Stacy will be marked absent on this roll call, Shadle.
Here.
Sanders.
Here.
And Sellers.
Here.
We do have a quorum, Mayor.
Thank you. And please entertain a motion to approve remote attendance by Alderman Stacy.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion made by Alderman Sellers, seconded by Alderman Clem to accept the remote attendance. Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll?
Shadle.
Aye.
Sanders.
Aye.
Sellers.
Aye.
Clem.
Aye.
And Simmons.
Aye.
The motion passes 5-0.
Now with Alderman Stacy now in remote attendance, could you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance led by Alderman Stacy?
Alderman Stacy, did you hear that? You may start the pledge.
Yes. I pledge allegiance of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item number 1 is the approval of the agenda. Is there such a motion?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion made by Alderman Shadle, seconded by Alderman Clem. Being it's remote, we'll ask Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll?
Stacy.
Aye.
Shadle.
Aye.
Sanders.
Aye.
Sellers. Clem.
Aye.
And Simmons.
Aye.
The motion carries 6-0.
Item number 2 is approval of the minutes from the regular meeting on May 1st, 2023, as well as May 15th. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion made by Alderman Shadle, seconded by Alderman Clem. Could you please take the roll?
Stacy.
Aye.
Shadle.
Aye.
Sanders.
Aye.
Sellers. Clem.
Aye.
And Simmons.
Aye.
The motion carries 6-0.
Item number 3 is public comments. We have a few that are signed up. Steve Carroll.
Okay. This is about agenda item number 10, the utility supervisor. renaming the current open position of Director of Utility Operations to Utility Supervisor isn't just simply a name change. As has been previously discussed here, it is also lowering the qualifications, or simply put, dumbing them down. A big part of the current position, as well as the proposed position, will be operating our water and sewer system, which monetarily speaking is the city's most valued asset. It is also the lifeblood of our city, of which we are now paying a very premium price for. To turn over the directorship of this operation to someone with lesser qualifications is courting disaster. Without a dependable and safe water system, the city will implode. At a previous meeting, Mr. Boyer openly stated that he had identified an internal candidate. This leads to obvious speculation that perhaps Mr. Boyer's internal candidate does not have the qualifications to be Director of Utility Operations, so he then creates a job that his internal candidate might be qualified for. This is a very dangerous roll of the dice. When it comes to qualifications, it just might be that Mr. Boyer values personal loyalty over what is in the best interest of the citizens of Freeport. Let's not have it said about Freeport that if a bullet doesn't kill you, the water will. Vote this ordinance down.
And next on the list, Fred Wagner, you didn't write down if you had something on the agenda or if it was just a different,
There was nothing on the agenda. I put it number 20 because I have a comment on that area, so I thought that's where I signed it.
okay, well then, at the end of the meeting, you're welcome to speak on that.
That's what I figured.
Thank you.
I'm always at the end of things.
And then do Phil McDermott?
My name is Phil McDermott, owner of 312. I'd like to speak regarding the sign extension that I'm requesting. As you know, the height of the sign is based off the amount of frontage a business has. Based off my frontage, I only can have a 27-foot sign. This sign size, because of the mobile sign next to me and my building, would be obscured. This sign, compared to surrounding signs, wouldn't even compare, putting our business at a major disadvantage. I want you to think of this. The restriction in height is purely based off frontage length, nothing else. If sign height was based off property depth, not width, no special request would be needed. If this sign was based off zoning, no special request would be needed. If this sign was based off total lot square footage, no special request would be needed. If my property was 27 to 30 foot wider, no special request would be needed. How many local restaurants have started up in the last 5 years on West Street, from the north side of town to the south side of town? 2, maybe 3. Juniors and myself are the 2 I can think of. Operating amongst the big guys is extraordinarily difficult. They have every advantage you can think of. As a small business, I am simply requesting a level playing field. Restricting my sign to 40 to 50% the height of my neighbors and competition is not level. Here are the surrounding businesses regarding their signs. Harbor Freight, which is right next door, has a very large sign. McDonald's, everyone knows the major advantage and size of signs they have everywhere. Wendy's, very large sign also. Farm and Fleet, another large sign. Lamar has 2 signs across the street, much larger than this request. Cube Smart and Pizza Hut, both have very tall signs. Subway down the street has 4 signs attached to it. The strip mall, with 5 below, has more square footage on signage than anyone. This is just in the immediate area. Now the question, how does this benefit Freeport? Not only do we pay city tax every month, the local multiplier effect is huge for a community. The local multiplier occurs when you spend your dollars at a locally owned and independent business instead of a chain store. Your dollars recirculate through the local community 2 to 4 times more than money spent at a non-local company or business. All 312 employees are residents that lived and are part of our community. I'm not asking to be treated better. I just want an opportunity to compete, and this sign allows for that. I am asking you to vote yes and allowing me to put a sign up comparable to surrounding business. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil. And then next we have Ben Hunsinger.
Hi, I'm Ben Hunziker. I'm the manager of 312 Beef and Sausage. And when I first started at 312, we were downtown. We only had 4 employees. And we've continued to work really hard, and we're up to 18 employees now. And kind of the things that stand in our way that we really need this sign is even some of our vendors from the Chicago have pointed out how it's difficult to see where we are and know exactly where to pull in at because usually, and even as our customers have said, we don't know exactly where you're at until it's too late. We're looking at the front of your building. They need to have a big sign going east-west ways so they can see coming up the hill and going down the hill. We've continued to work really hard on quality and make sure our food stays some of the best and make sure we send the right stuff. So thank you.
Thank you. And next we have Corey Engel.
Hello, I'm Corey Engel. I'm speaking on behalf of 312 as well. I'm just speaking based on, I used to be a business owner in town as well. I also had a store in Rockford as well. And I cannot tell you how important it is to have a very visible sign. I had a store in Rockford where 27,000 cars drove by a day. I had a $10,000 beautiful sign. Every customer that came into my store, I would ask, did you see our sign? Most didn't. It was really, really tough. I would sit out in front of my store on Perryville where I had 6,000 cars a day that came into our parking lot. I would stand out in front with the cheese tray in front of my store with a $10,000 lit sign ahead of me, basically above me, and I would ask customers when they come to my store, I said, hey, is there a cheese store here in Rockford? 90% of the people would say, don't know, never seen one. I said, well, actually look behind me, here's my store. So it's really crazy. I mean, even my store in Freeport, which I had a 4x12 sign, I would always ask people, how did you hear about us? And the sign was so incredibly important. That was a pretty decent sign, but still probably 50% said they didn't even see that sign. Part of it is because it's lower to the ground. So obviously like a McDonald's, Wendy's, places like that have such a huge advantage because of the height and obviously the width. I realize it's based on square footage of the property, but I'm just asking that hopefully you vote yes on behalf of 312 because even though it's right down the street from where I live, even I myself, it's hard to see that, without having that, obviously access there and having a nice sign, so. Thank you.
Okay, then that concludes the public comments that are signed up for agenda items. So we will move on to the consent agenda. The consent agenda is considered to be routine in nature unless there's a member of the council who would like to have something removed for further discussion. Seeing none, the consent agenda is approval to receive and place on file the board and commission minutes from the Zoning Board of Appeals dated April 6th, Planning Commission April 13th, and the Board of Fire and Police Commission April 25th, 2023. Also is the Police Department report for April, the Greater Freeport Partnerships monthly report dated May 24th, and building permit reports for May 2023. Also is the adoption of Resolution 2023-43 for the temporary closure of the streets for the Pint to Pint Half Marathon sponsored by the Family YMCA for October 14th to the Illinois Department of Transportation. Also is approval of the finance bills payable in the total of $2,292,374. Approval of the payroll for pay period ending May 20th, 2023 in the total of $589,207.25, and the Finance Department report, as well as the cash and investment report for April 2023. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion made by Alderman Shadle, seconded by Alderman Sellers. Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll?
Stacy,
Aye.
Shadle,
Aye.
Sanders,
Aye.
Sellers,
Aye.
Clem,
Aye.
and Simmons.
Aye.
The motion passes 6-0.
Well, it's always a pleasure to see so many people show up for such a significant event. So I'm going to hand the microphone over so that way you can hear what Chief Schenberger has to say. So if you could raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Christopher Schenberger,
I, Christopher Schenberger,
having been appointed as Chief of Police
having been appointed as Chief of Police
in the City of Freeport,
in the City of Freeport
in the County of Stevenson,
and the County of Stevenson,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and I will faithfully discharge the duties
and I will faithfully discharge the duties
of my appointment
of my appointment
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Congratulations, Chief.
Thank you. Thank you. I'd like to thank the city manager, Mr. Boyer, for this appointment and allowing me to serve the citizens of Freeport by leading the women and men of the Freeport Police Department who are here tonight, many of them, and I appreciate that. I also want to thank my family who's also here tonight for their support and for being with me through this almost 25 years of being employed by the city. So thank you.
Okay, item number 6 are appointments. Normally, council, they unless you'd like to have them separated out. Madam Clerk, would you please read those for the record?
We have 3 people appointed to the Planning Commission, Patrick Busker through October 31st, 2024, and then 2 people effective through October 31st, 2025. That's William Clark and Sharon Kornfine. Also, the appointment of Rob Boyer, replacing Randy Bucas for 2 positions, Region 1 Planning Council, and Greater Freeport Partnership Board.
Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion made by Alderman Shadle, seconded by Alderman Clem. Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll?
Stacy.
No.
Shadle.
Aye.
Sanders.
No.
Sellers.
No.
Clem.
Aye.
And Simmons. All positions fail 4-2. Do we separate them out? Do we?
Well, I guess that'd be the question for the council is, if anyone has any input as to, are any of the, for those that voted nay, are any of the names for suggested appointments acceptable? Or are they?
With me, I would like to have them separated out.
Okay.
Okay, so please
The
feel
Planning
free
Commission.
to voice that at the beginning.
Huh?
Please feel free to voice those things before a roll is taken.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay, so let's go back to the first appointment, Patrick Busker. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Don't let anything die for lack of second.
So we have a motion again, or do they, can they all stand until they have to, Shadle and Clem?
So the original motion, Mr. Clem, to approve all of them, that failed. So now if someone wants to make them individually, we can do that, that's fine.
Okay, so we have a motion made by Alderman Shadle, seconded by Alderman Clem on the appointment of Patrick Busker. Could you please take the roll?
Stacy.
No.
Shadle.
Aye.
Sanders.
No.
Sellers.
No.
Clem.
Aye.
Simmons. And that motion fails 4-2.
And is there a motion to approve William Clark to the Planning Commission?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion made by Alderman Shadle, seconded by Alderman Clem. Could you please take that roll?
Stacy.
No.
Shadle.
Aye.
Sanders.
No.
Sellers,
No.
Clem,
Aye.
and Simmons.
No.
That motion fails 4-2.
And third is Sharon Cornfrine for the Planning Commission. Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
Motion made by Alderman Shadle, seconded by Alderman Clem. Could you please take the roll?
Stacy,
No.
Shadle,
Aye.
Sanders,
No.
Sellers,
No.
Clem,
Aye.
and Simmons. That motion fails 4-2.
And item number 4, and that is Rob Boyer to the Region 1 Planning. Is there a motion?
So moved. Second.
Motion made by Alderman Clem, seconded by Alderman Shadle. Could you please take that roll?
Stacy,
Can they be conversation?
At this point,
Discussion on the motion.
Yes.
Right, there was a motion and a second. I think she's asking for discussion on the motion and second.
okay, go ahead, Alderman Stacy.
Because of all the duties and the weight load that's already on Boyer's hands, to the point where he's needing help, why would he want to further his load by being on this committee?
Alderwoman Stacy, it is important for the city to be represented on R1, and it is traditionally the city manager's job to represent the city on R1. So I believe that I'm not only fully qualified, but I do have time to represent the city there.
Any further discussion?
Yes.
Yes.
Alderman Simmons?
Yes, ma'am. So my question is, does this overlap the duties you already have? And is this just an extension of your position already? Mr. Boyer.
Yes, thank you, Alderperson. Yes, these are some of the ongoing duties of the city manager of the city of Freeport.
Alderman Clem?
Yes, I just wanted to add, the night I attended the mayor's meeting here a couple weeks ago, Mike Dunn, the head of that, happened to speak, and he's in charge of Region 1, and he explained what all it did, and basically it's a conglomerate of all the cities that are working together to try and gain access to different, whether it be funding devices, working with different places, planning what's going on, and they're also basically working with the Chicago district that has, I believe, 250 cities or stuff, that areas that they're representing. So between the two of those, so far there's been great working together, and they work with major industries such as Commonwealth Edison, other items, NICOR, all the items for development and stuff that you might need down the line in utilities planning for these projects and stuff.
Mayor Miller?
Alderman Sellers?
Yes, I would like to know, how often do you have to go to these meetings, and how much time is it, going to these meetings? And
I believe that would be monthly, and as far as time is concerned, that would fall within, the normal operating business. I put in as many hours as required to complete the job.
If there's no further discussion, Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll on the appointment of Region 1?
Stacy,
Aye.
Shadle,
Aye.
Sanders,
Aye.
Sellers,
Aye.
Clem,
Aye.
and Simmons.
Aye.
The motion passes 6-0.
And the last appointment being Rob Boyer to the Greater Freeport Partnership. Is there a motion to
So
approve?
moved. So moved. Second.
Motion made by Alderman Clem, seconded by Alderman Shadle. Any discussion?
Yes,
Yeah,
please,
oh.
if I could.
Alderman
Go
Clem?
ahead. No, you go first.
Greater Freeport Partnership, as we know, was developed off of the combining of the Chamber of Commerce and many other groups that were together. For years, for many, many years, there's always been one or two representatives of the city of Freeport on this. And the main reason for it is it's a public-private partnership, and many of the things that are discussed are businesses or opportunities that want to come to Freeport, but they don't want their names out on stuff until deals are cut, so the prices of land don't go up, so the prices of different utilities or things that they might need might be worked on before they get to that stage to present them. So it's important for us to have a person on that board, and I don't know, is it down to where we have one person now? I used to do it also a number of years as an alderman, but we had two people at that time.
Mayor Miller, I guess that's part of my question was, does it have to be, Mr. Boyer, could it be a someone off of the one of the alder people, or does it have to be?
Well, typically, it's been the responsibility of all the other two previous city managers, and it just would be customary that it goes to the third city manager. Deputy City Manager, did you want to say something on that?
I just want to throw in my 2 cents. The government entities that make up the Greater Freeport Partnership on their board now are the City of Freeport, which the city manager has traditionally been serving on since we were ones that really spearheaded the effort to create it. The county is represented by the county administrator. The school district is represented by the school district superintendent, and Highland Community College is represented by the college president. Thank you.
Mayor Miller.
Alderman Sanders?
The question comes to mind. What is the public-private sector of the Greater Freeport, and what is it designed to do? And could you give us a bit of a history and description of what this thing that we want to put our city manager in the midst of? Because we have no clue as of now what their purpose for. And I have not heard of this insurgent mark that has been imposed upon the city. If we have anybody like that, that we don't even know about. We got to know something to vote for, the reason to vote on this kind of setup. So give us a little bit more than what we're hearing right now.
Are you asking what is the partnership?
No, I'm asking what is it, what he described it as, it's described as the partnership, but what is the public-private entity that I'm thinking that is collaborating together? Is it a joint force? And what is the purpose of our city manager sitting on a board that the rest of the city don't know what the purpose and the meaning of having a public-private entity inside of the city of Freeport, inside the city?
Deputy Manager, did you want to take that, or how do you want to handle that question?
Mayor, I'll do whatever your desire is.
Sure, I think you're probably the best qualified to answer that since you've been sitting in that position.
Okay, thank you. Well, first of all, the organization has been around for probably 4 years.
Specify, please.
I can't give you a date when it was actually created. It's been around for at least 4 years.
When you say it's been around for a year, what's the criteria for this particular public-private? What's the criteria to make that, to even make that up?
Madam Mayor, do you want me to continue answering his questions, or?
Well, with Mark Williams, that presentation that was put together by Mark Williams, having to do with economic development, tourism, the chamber, this is the organization that we're talking about, that has been customarily, like what Mr. Buckus said, which departments from what organization and how they're represented. So that's why, I mean, obviously, Manager Buckus is going to be leaving in a few weeks, and so it's customary that Manager Boyer steps into that role, just like, the superintendent of the school, the college. It's,
Okay. Well, Mayor, that's not a definitive clarity of the question that I'm asking at this present time. And I need us to know more of what the principal reasons why we have a public-private entity.
Alderman Clem, would you like to say something on that?
Sure. Keep in mind when Mr. Bucas mentioned that this has started maybe 4 years ago, okay? Before then, it's been around for 40 years under the Chamber of Commerce and other organizations, and we're all together.
You know better than that.
No, I don't, because I'm going to tell you the truth there, and I'm just telling you that.
Okay.
That was started by, if you don't believe me, Mr. Engel's out there that served on the Chamber of Commerce for a number of years. So as they move forward, when we had a mayoral form of government, the mayor was the person that went there, the mayor and one alderman. The reason for these, the public-private partnership is the public produces X number of money. We put in X number of $1,000 a year, the county puts in X number of $1,000 a year. There's probably a minimum, tell me if I'm right or wrong, 150 businesses that donate to the Greater Freeport partnerships also. So between those two, the first thing you see, other than the planning and the things of trying to bring things to town, is every event in the city of Freeport is put on by the Greater Freeport Partnership, except this year Teddy Baker Days, but they are also being part of that. So without that organization and without the private funding, if it was kept as all as public funding, okay, everything can be FOIA'd, everything that goes on. If somebody wanted to put something in at Mill Race Crossing, somebody wanted to give $100,000 to do it, the land was there and they were going to start a place tomorrow, all that could be FOIA'd and would be public knowledge before it ever hit the streets or anything else. So this way, with it being public and private, you can't take and FOIA everything that goes there. That's one of the reasons where private deals and deals come forward for not only the city of Freeport, for any city works that way. That's similar to this Region 1 planning that he's on, is they develop all these areas to try and get people to come into. So that's the reason for the public-private funding of it.
What's the success rate on this project that you're talking about? Or
I didn't pick, Larry, many times, or Alderman, many times, it's extremely hard to tell simply because the state of Illinois, it used to be, when I was on it, would send out, we're looking for X number of acres that are ground ready, that are shovel ready to get a project on, and then everybody would work on getting their stuff together and produce that for the state, and then you might not hear anything for 6 months. So
did the council have any implementation being involved? Was the city involved in any of this?
The leaders of...
Okay, we're going back probably 5 years worth of discussion here. So if you want to have some further understanding of what the partnership is, happy to do that. The purpose of what's on the agenda tonight is whether or not you want to approve Manager Boyer to sit in that executive seat like has been customary for the last 5 years. That's the point of it. If you want more understanding of the partnership, happy to do that. It's just not, that's not the discussion for tonight.
Okay, Mayor, well, we need to close this conversation until further notice, because...
Well, then the city will have no representation on that board.
Okay, that's it.
So I'm sorry, Alderman Simmons?
I understand that the point of our discussion was to decide if we want Mr. Boyer to represent us. However, the questions that Mr. Sanders asked are fair. We did receive this information and orientation, but there's a lot of the public that is probably questioning that, so I can understand his line of questioning. And again, I do understand what our purpose is today. Do we want Mr. Boyer to represent us? But I do think his questions and line of questioning was fair, because people do have those questions. What is the Greater Freeport Partnership? How do we get in that? What is that? So although it may be a discussion for a later time, it should definitely be a discussion.
And we do that. Actually, once a quarter, the partnership shows up to the council meetings, and they give a report, and that's the time to ask them questions. Once a quarter, they do that. Yes, and the monthly report's on the consent agenda, which was just approved. Yep. So they do that every single month.
So we do have a motion and a second on the
Yes, we
table.
do. We have a motion made by Clem, seconded by Shadle. Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll on the passage of Boyer?
Stacy.
No.
Shadle.
Aye.
Sanders.
No.
Sellers.
No.
Clem.
Aye.
And Simmons.
Aye.
We have a tie at 3-3. Mayor, your vote, please.
Aye.
And the motion passes 4-3.
Thank you. Item number 7 is recognition of service awards. So we'll start with the Water Department.
Scott Curran.
Could I have Scott come on up here? Scott Curran? Let me grab one thing off my desk.
How many years? 40. Wow.
Good evening, Scott. I just want to, we're here to recognize Scott Kern and his contributions over 40 years of working with the city. Scott started his employment here with the city of Freeport in June of 1983. He came to Freeport with a bachelor's degree in water chemistry from the University of Wisconsin-Stevens Point. Scott is our laboratory manager and possesses an Illinois Department of Public Health Environmental Water Lab certification.
Wow.
Scott's responsibilities include monitoring the quality of the city's drinking water and wastewater treatment process in accordance with all local and state federal rules and regulations. Scott works with the compliance officer and various public works department staff to ensure we are in compliance with federal and state drinking water regulations, as well as the city's NPDES and sludge permits. He also oversees the city's industrial pretreatment program, which includes developing local limits, monitoring industrial discharges, and meeting with industrial user personnel throughout the city of Freeport. Scott was instrumental in obtaining an approved pretreatment program status for the city of Freeport, improving the city's industrial inspection program, and for developing the city of Freeport's first wastewater discharge permitting program for each significant industrial user. He works with the compliance officer and various other Department of Public Works staff to recommend and develop enforcement actions for industrial users which are not in compliance. Scott has developed our laboratory quality control manuals and implemented procedures according to approved lab practices. Scott is very well respected in the industry, and the water and sewer personnel from nearby townships often stop in to ask him for his recommendations. He has also worked with the Freeport's lab staff to provide emergency aid testing services for surrounding communities. I would like to make a few personal comments about Scott. I've worked with Scott for the last 3 years, and I don't think I've ever met somebody with more competence and more wisdom and more attention to detail. This man's been a true servant to the city, and I appreciate you very much, Scott, and the city has benefited by his attention to detail and his commitment. So thank you so much, Scott. So this is your certificate and then some coupons here. Scott,
And then we have 2 recognitions for the police department.
So I have 2 employees to recognize tonight. The first one is Mignon Cooper. She has 5 years of service as a dispatcher with us. Unfortunately, she couldn't make it tonight. The second employee is Alan Guilfoyle. Want to come up here? He has 15 years of service as a dispatcher with us.
Thank you. And then we also have finance.
It is my pleasure to recognize Tommy Privy, Deputy Finance Director, for his 5 years of service to the City of Freeport. He began his career with the city in 2018, right after graduation from college with a bachelor's degree in accounting and a minor in criminal justice. His first position with the city was junior accountant, and his duties included processing all of the accounts payable for the City of Freeport, payroll, and other cash receipting duties. He also assisted with the financial software conversion, which I don't think either of us want to go back and do again, which I can't imagine doing that without him being there. On February 1st of 2021, Tommy was promoted to city accountant, and with this promotion, he dove further into the general ledger for the City of Freeport and began what sometimes seemed to be never-ending amount of bank reconciliations and cross-checking of general ledger accounts. And then in May of 2022, Tommy was promoted to Deputy Finance Director. He has taken a lead role in our annual financial audits, is a general problem solver in many areas, and I can count on him to assist me at a moment's notice. And I know a lot of the other department heads can count on him as well, assisting them with their budgets and numbers. I truly appreciate your dedication and reliability. Thank you, Tommy, for bringing your many talents to the City of Freeport and for what I hope is many years to come.
Well, congratulations. Item number 8 is the presentation of the draft fire and police pension actuary reports given by Lauterbach and Amon.
Good evening. I'm Bob Reitz with Lauterbach and Amon, the actuary for the police and fire pension funds. We do have our presentation up on the board. In addition, everybody should have a hard copy in front of them. So what we have here is the results of the actuarial evaluation for calendar year 2023. Just so everybody's aware what an actuarial evaluation is, what that means is we collect all the census information of all the plan members as of the beginning of the year. We also determine the assets that are being held by the funds in order to determine the amount that the city needs to contribute annually to make sure that all the members are going to receive the benefits that they are promised upon their employment. So going to the first page, I'm going to start with the bad news. So what the bad news is the investment results for fiscal year 2022. Combined, you had almost $123 million in the funds. At the beginning of the year, you had approximately $855,000 of employer contributions or city contributions go in, another $626,000 of member contributions. So this is the members with their payroll deductions paying for a portion of their benefits. Investment returns lost combined $16 million last year. So approximately 12 to 15% based on which fund we're talking about. So the benefits also outflow of another $6.6 million with some additional expenses. The change in fair value of assets or market value of assets is down approximately $21.4 million from the prior year. So not a good year investment-wise. Really, there's nowhere you could have hidden within the markets. Equities are down, fixed income was down, just a bad year overall. Looking at the next page, we talk about what does that do to your contribution. So for fire, you're going to pay last year approximately $527,000. This year, it's about 692,000, so your increase in contribution for the upcoming year is about 165,000. Police, a little bit less than that, increase in by about 33,000. The big item here being is the change in your unfunded liability. Back a few years ago, when you issued the pension obligation bonds, you got these funds up over 100%, and you had some good investment returns after doing so your funds grew. This year, you gave some of those funds back with the investment losses. So right now, the fire fund is sitting at 96.5% funded, and police is right on the nose at 100% funded. It's important to note, though, that's on an actuarial value of assets basis. So what that means is any year in which we have such significant investment losses, we don't have to recognize those immediately. We spread those over a 5-year period. So right now, approximately $14 million of investment losses. We would have expected your funds to gain about $8 million. So really there's $22 million of actuarial losses that were incurred last year. But we don't have to recognize that all. We're spreading that over a 5-year period of time. Looking at your funded percentage, if we valued your fund on a market value basis, not this actuarial value basis, each of those percentages would be down about another 10%. You'd be about 90% funded on the police fund and about 87% funded on the fire fund. If you had those unfunded liabilities outstanding, that would increase the city's contribution requirement by about $900,000. So this methodology of smoothing your asset gains and losses is helping the city to kind of weather those storms when you do have really significant or poor investment years. Going to the next page, just a breakdown of what the contribution consists of. The first piece being the employer normal cost. So what the normal cost is, the accrual of benefits by your active members. So every policeman or firefighter that earns an additional year of service, there's a benefit that's earned along with that service. That member is paying for a portion of it. The remaining amount is being paid by the city. So combined, that's about $867,000 to make that contribution to normal cost, and then an amortization of unfunded liability. We saw on police, you were right at 100%, so there is no unfunded liability, so there's no amortization to take place. With fire, you fell a little bit, about $2 million unfunded, so now you have an amortization piece that popped up again this year. Historically, for the past couple years, that amount was zero also when you were overfunded. To get your net contribution for both funds this year to be about $1,053,000. A lot of the rest of the presentation is just informational. I don't want to spend all the time unless there's something significant out here. A lot of demographic changes for both the fire and police funds. Some metrics on age and service, where the age and service where your members are at. On these pages, the real important ones to look at are those members that are age 20 and 50 years or greater. So that's the members that are eligible to retire today, as we can see here on the fire, for example. We have 4 members that are eligible to start drawing their benefits today, and then about another 6 participants that are going to be eligible to retire within 10 years. On the police side, there's nobody. Nobody is eligible today, but you do have about 8 members that are going to be eligible to retire in about 5 years. And I mention these just because as a cash flow item, we like to look at what's the expected outflow going to be of your benefit payments. Right now, combined, you're paying about $6.5 million each year in benefit payments. Over the next 5 to 10 years, we expect that to increase 15 to 30%, up to $7.5 and $8.5 million. Now, that's not meant to scare you. All the money that you have in the fund and the funding that you're doing is taking care of those benefit accruals that are taking place. But those accruals do include the future retirements of those members that are getting into eligibility age, and also including the COLA 3% increases that are payable to all their existing retirees.
Could I ask just
Yes, sir.
a question quick on that? Do you account for any loss of payments in those numbers?
It does. So that takes out the members who may pass away, or any other significant event that might lead someone to not be in receipt of benefits anymore.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes.
I would like to know, how close are we to paying back the amount that we took out and we lost the pension, and we were paying back that pension that we were trying to catch up on? How far are we? Are we 80% or 100%, or?
So
Because we took out extra taxes so that.
Right. So You're not speaking of the payment schedule on the bond issuance, correct?
I don't, was it a bond? I don't know. Yeah, okay.
Okay, yeah, so you took out some pension obligation bonds that would be on, I believe, a 30-year schedule to pay off that debt. I think it was approximately, give or take, $50 million was the total amount of those bonds. There's still, probably 27 years remaining on the payment of that schedule, but those proceeds went into the pension fund, so your contribution requirement to the pension fund went down significantly. So it was kind of a balancing act, taking it from one to pay the other, but you're paying off those bonds at a much lower interest rate than the 6.5 or 6.75% interest that's assumed on these pension dollars. Does that answer your question?
A little bit. I'll look into it.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Okay. And the only other thing I want to just mention is a couple plan changes that occurred the year. So these are legislative changes that came during 2022. The first being for the police pension fund. There is a new public act that was effective January 1st that now allows for benefits payable to surviving spouses of retired members when the member was not married when they retired. So they retired, they took a single life form of annuity, they remarried or became first married after retirement. Now, if that member is married to his new spouse or her new spouse for 5 years, she will be eligible for a benefit should the retiree pass away and predecease that spouse for up to 15 years of payments. So that's a new provision that came in this year. We did not value that explicitly in this valuation. Not enough data was available at that time. We will have that included next year. And another change that occurred was more in line of a interpretation from the Department of Insurance on disability benefits and COLAs applicable to disability pensioners, that when someone becomes disabled, when they hit age 60, they're now eligible for COLA benefits, so cost of living increases and so forth. So the prior interpretation was that if, say, for example, someone was disabled at age 40, when they attained age 60, they would get 20 years of 3% or 60% pay increase for retroactive COLA increases when they hit age 60. The new interpretation does not allow that 60%, it just allows one-time 3% increase. So you will see a slight decrease in your liability in the valuations for both police and fire funds due to that provision this year. A lot of technical stuff, I know, so don't expect you all to memorize that. And other than that, that's really the nuts and bolts of my report. I open up for questions. I understand we do have some new alderperson on board. If you haven't been around these pension funds or heard about the consolidation, all these things, I'd love to answer any of your questions.
I just have 2 quick questions. So the changes, those are law changes?
Pardon me?
Just for my clarification, the changes that you just spoke of, those are law changes that happen?
Correct. Well, one's a true public act, so that is a law. The other is an interpretation of the statutes by the Department of Insurance.
Okay, and then this is moving a little backwards, but we moved on before I got to ask you. I just want to make sure that I'm reading this right. In investment return, although the market was down, you still had an investment return of like 6.6 million total, and then total outgo is 6.5.
Right, that's a negative $16 million of return on assets, so that's a loss of $16 million. And then benefit payments are payments
I'm
out,
looking at something wrong.
negative,
Okay.
decreasing your fund value by 6.6 million.
Okay, thank you.
If there's no further questions, thank you for your presentation.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Have a good night. We will move on to item number 9, which is the Freeport Housing Authority quarter presentation. Babette?
Good evening. My name is Babette Jameson Varner, and I'm the Executive Director of the Housing Authority. I first of all framed this presentation because I know that we have a lot of new alderpersons, and I wanted to be able to kind of provide a little bit of historic context as well as updates on major projects. I've been with the Housing Authority going on 6 years now. September, October of this year will be the 6th year. And over the last 6 years, we have accomplished quite a bit. Upon joining the agency, one of the first items that we initiated was a forensic audit. Now, my career has pretty much been based on coming into organizations that are somewhat struggling and really understanding their life cycle and what are some of those needs. So the purpose of that audit was to really understand the financial situation of the Housing Authority during that period of time, and this was between September of 17 and 18 when we performed the audit. One thing that we also learned during that process is that there was a need to improve our procurement process as well as take a closer look at the financial reports that we were receiving. So we did procure contracts with a new fee accountant as well as our annual auditors. In addition to taking a closer look at the financial situation as well as bringing in a new team to really help design how we report our financials, I feel good about the fact that we established GAAP-compliant financial policies, procedures, and reporting. I think committee members who have been here for a while, they know one thing that I do talk about is that, you know, once you put something in place, it takes some time. You have to spend some time monitoring that process to make sure that it's effective and it's efficient. And at this time, I feel like in terms of financials, we have a well-oiled machine. Another area over the last 5 years was implementation of organizational restructuring, focused on management, occupancy, physical needs, capital needs, and again, financial management. And these are the things that are outlined in our annual HUD report in terms of how we're rated on an annual basis. Continuing on, and I know that many people are familiar with these two items, but streamlining the housing portfolio in response to 71 units of affordable housing being located in the 100-year floodplain. In addition to streamlining our housing portfolio, we were able to relocate 71 households that resided in that floodway. In addition to the success in relocating them, every eligible tenant received a Section 8 voucher to be able to move wherever they wanted to move in the city or within the state or even beyond. We did, on the other hand, probably had about 9 individuals or 9 households who agreed on a temporary transfer to one of the other developments. They still hold their Section 8 vouchers. They're still looking for Section 8 landlords. And we'll continue to work with them as long as our contract administrator, who is Menard County for this project, can allow us to extend their vouchers. Full financial recovery. When I came to the agency, there was no reserve, and we also had we had a 0 financial score, 0 out of 25. Last couple years, it has been, we have scored 25 out of 25. We have gained a reserve that covers operating, as well as a portion of that will serve as leverage as we move towards repositioning the Westview community. And I'll talk a little bit more about repositioning in a few minutes. And lastly, is the updating of the lighting and security systems in the Westview area. We have installed state-of-the-art motion lights, cameras, and additional security system items for safety measures and precautions for our tenants and residents. We're connected with the police department, who, if there's incidents in that area, they're able to also pull that information up on their cameras as well. We also have purchased license plate readers, and we will continue to purchase at least a few more for different areas within the developments. I am going to, let's see here. I'm gonna move on to repositioning, seeing that I did talk about that just a few minutes ago. So Westview repositioning, what that is that we have been strategically planning, modernizing that development. So that's actually right now 196 units. 18 units are pretty much not inhabitable, and more than likely what will happen is that it will probably end up being additional parking once we have fully determined how we can best use that land where those units are located. The remainder of those units, 178, we will bring them up to date. They have not been modernized since they were built, probably back in the 60s. We're looking at ADA. We're also looking at cabinetry, all exterior, interior, as well as concrete. We just completed a physical conditions assessment. We just received those documents back for all 4 developments in the Westview portfolio. And now where we are with this particular structure, we're kind of like right between RAD application and financing plan. So we're able to take these documents and begin to build our financing plan in terms of what we can do, how much time it's going to take, and how much money it's going to take. But again, our job is to provide safe, affordable housing, and we're at the point where we do need to be strategic in making sure that we bring those apartments up to par. And let's see here. All right. I'm sorry, I'm struggling with going back to another slide. Any suggestions?
Kurt, can you help us?
Thank you. Back to the third slide. Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. All right. So I know a lot of questions have come up about the Brewster Hosmer high-rises. I wanted to provide just a historic timeline for some understanding, because I believe there's been a lot of confusion. But just to begin, I think you guys are all aware, and if you're not, this should help kind of clear things up. Back in 2016-17, the high-rises, Brewster Apartments, Hosmer Apartments, they went RAD. And with that, when that process began, one of the first things we had the agency had to clear up, this was before my time, was that the Housing Authority of the City of Freeport did not have a voucher program. So with that being the case, Winnebago County was administering the voucher program for this development. Between 2017-18, moving into 2022, it was determined that the Housing Authority was not able to manage the property of the high-rises with the different changes, with it being a tax credit project, and hired Brenshaw, the developers hired Winnebago County to also provide property management. So twofold, voucher contract administrator as well as the hired property management agent. In 2022, the developers extended Winnebago's property management contract for Freeport RAD, and that's the 2 high-rises. Now, in October of 2022, the developers, Brenshaw, gave ownership back to the Freeport Housing Authority of Freeport RAD 1. And what that means is that they were no longer involved with the project anymore. They gave us their equity. From October 2022 through February 2023, that's when Winnebago County provided their termination notice to end providing property management. Their property management contract ended with us April 30th, 2023. Now, with that said, we did bring on a new third-party property management company for the Brewster Hosmer apartments. The name of the company is called Estonia. Estonia concentrates, they're based in Chicago. They concentrate on property acquisition, disposition, construction, and for us, asset management, the third-party asset management. What we're looking at in a very short period of time between May 1st and now, Estonia has come in and they've truly changed the dynamics. The ultimate goal is to make certain that tenants receive the best quality support and services that's possible, as well as make sure that these two buildings are fully operational and they're also cash flowing. This month, we should have a full budget under the new third-party management, but I really feel good about that this will be a successful partnership. They jumped in, they moved in very quickly. Not only do they cover affordable housing, but they also do multi-income housing in Illinois, Wisconsin, and I believe a few other sites. But please look out for more information about the status of Brewster Hosmer and this new third-party property management company that I really feel are going to do great things. Okay. Lastly, the Parkside update. Just briefly, I think where we are right now, you all know that the buildings are boarded up. We submitted a special application that is what provided to support to be able to relocate tenants out of the floodway. That application was a disposition application. The goal was to move that to demolition. Right now, we are still working with HUD on the final solution in terms of disposition and what needs to happen moving forward to be able to free this property from the Housing Authority. So right now, I don't have a complete update, but it is coming. So with that said, do we have any questions?
Madam Mayor?
Alderman Sellers?
I'd just like to know, what are you, I know you say you're gonna demo, you don't know yet with HUD, you're waiting on that. Are you also thinking of the, is it the Monroe Center? Are you gonna keep that, or?
Well, so here's the thing, and this is the reason why the application had to be submitted as disposition. Although the value of the buildings were at zero, the land had value, as well as the Monroe Center and another non-residential building. So this is why we went in for disposition. But even if we had decided to move forward with demolition, the goal was to not tear down those two buildings. We felt like those two buildings could be used, whether it's for the community or some other resources. So no, the goal is not to tear down those two buildings, not while it's under the Housing Authority.
Alderman Shadle?
And just for clarification, those two buildings are raised up and they're out of the floodplain.
Yes, those two buildings, and actually, see, the one thing about the floodway is that even the apartments, no water ever entered the apartments, but of course it's getting higher and higher. We've never had water enter the Monroe Center, nor have we had water enter the other non-residential facility. The biggest issue was when the flood came, getting people in and out, and the fact that they just couldn't stay.
Thank you.
Mayor Miller?
Alderman Sanders?
Question. Are we understanding that there's a development going to be created in conjunction with the Housing Authority? Is there land, property developments going to take place on that area that you're zooming in on?
Are you speaking of Westview or?
Yes.
Okay.
Not Westview, the one you just.
Parkside?
Yeah.
Well, from the Housing Authority, no, we're not anticipating any new development because I don't think that there have been issues that have been resolved in the surrounding area. There has been interest in purchasing of that land, but use for that land, I don't necessarily know what that'll be.
So how do we get a great understanding on the process that is taking place as you're speaking? What should we be looking forward to, or not looking forward to?
Okay. Let me see here. So in terms of what you should be looking forward to, and I'm not certain if I can really answer that question. I'll do my best to answer it from the Housing Authority perspective, is that if we're able to dispose of that area, which really is the land and those two buildings, what the dollars that we will receive from doing that would serve as additional leverage as we seek financing to modernize Westview. I mean, that's the ultimate goal, is that, you know, we don't, and see, I think this is the one thing that we probably really didn't discuss a lot. When it comes down to a housing authority, one of the two of the primary goals is real estate development and managing safe, affordable housing. These are the two goals. And this is one reason why, you know, HUD does not put dollars in the demolition. There are other resources available, and that was the goal, is to continue to look for those resources. But when it comes down to developing that financing plan for repositioning over at Westview, those 178 units, or 196, and 18 of them will have to go down. Our goal is to pour as much as we can to serve as leverage to make sure we can get this done.
So I have
Alderman Simmons?
I have a couple of questions for you concerning Parkside.
Okay.
Can you use your microphone?
Sorry. So, as you said, it's boarded up, and at this point, you have no idea what you all plan to do with those properties?
No, I wouldn't say we don't have an idea. Right now, we're at a point where we have to make sure that we are in compliance when it comes down to HUD regulation in terms of how we dispose. Again, we didn't expect to receive a negotiated offer, but there's still, in terms of processes that the Special Application Center in HUD require us to go through. So, for instance, we may need another appraisal. We're still, and getting an appraisal right now is really tough because there's not many in that area. But we may need to get another appraisal. We had an appraisal from 2020. It's really no longer valid. I think it's only good for a year. So that would be one of the processes. So it's not a matter of not knowing what to do. It's a matter of doing what's going to be more beneficial to the agency, and what's going to be most beneficial is to be able to sell that property for the agency.
Your goal is to ultimately sell those properties?
Yes.
Okay. So then my second question, I have a couple questions about those.
Sure.
They're right across the street from me. And I know that they were newly renovated, Central Air, within the past few years. And then you're saying that Westport needs a whole new renovation, but you have all of these buildings over here that are eyesore now because they are boarded up, that are livable with Central Air and had been, you know, updated fairly recently. So why not use those? And then that would then help with some of the blight in that neighborhood.
So you're saying why not use those buildings that are located in the floodplain?
As you try to update and reposition Westport?
Well, because of the location, and it's a federally regulated floodway, we had to relocate those tenants. Now, in terms of those upgrades that you're speaking of, I'm not certain, you know, of the time frame that you mean in terms of just a few years ago. I could get the actual number, but I think it's probably been more than 10 years, if not more than that. But I know that originally the goal was for Parkside to be redeveloped a part of the RAD project, but HUD denied it because of its location at that time. So to be clear, when it comes down to families in a regulatory floodway, the ultimate goal is to move them out if we don't have the resources to do anything else with it.
So the decision was HUD's decision because it was in a floodway. You can no longer have residents there, although those properties have been there since
that.
I mean,
that was, I don't know what happened beforehand, but based on regulations and research that actually took place in terms of making that determination, we did fully utilize, federal regulations in that determination being made. The ultimate goal is to make sure that families are safe. And I think I heard you say you lived across the street. Well, and the one thing about it is that we had so many tenants that we don't have the dollars. HUD does not approve dollars to put people in hotels when the flood comes. So they had no place to go. And, but having that option of you have a Section 8 voucher, you can go any place in the country that you want to, and you also receive an allowance. A lot of people took advantage of that.
I understand that. I understand that. I'm just trying to figure out where the decision came from. Was it a HUD decision? Was it a local, housing authority decision?
Yeah.
Now that we have these boarded up properties, I still haven't heard a clear plan or goal as to where we intend to go. And it sounds like you're waiting on another assessment to see if you can sell or demolish.
Well, yeah, we may have to do another appraisal. The ultimate goal is to sell that property. And often when you're dealing with, a lot of, federal regulations and processes to maintain compliance, and that's my ultimate goal. Number one is due diligence. Two, to make sure that we're fully in compliance as we move forward with the decisions that have been made. But again, as a housing authority by itself, no, we couldn't just say, we're going to shut these buildings down and move people on. There was a lot of research, a lot of assessments that were done, environmental assessments by architectural firms, contractors. So the data is there in terms of the need to dispose or demolish those units. Now, if time, as time goes on, if it's determined that no, we can't sell the units, we can't sell the property, then the next step is to pursue additional funding to be able to do so. Because the reason why it's boarded up is because, we didn't want to take any risk of people trying to enter the building. We know boarded, it doesn't look good, but what looks worse is broken out windows.
No, I understand.
I'm just explaining. I'm just making sure I answer your question.
My concern is the fact that we have all this affordable housing that's empty. And then you say, you don't know, and you don't have a timeline to tell me when they will be sold, if they will be sold, if they will be demolished at all. Like, that's concerning not just to me. I'm sure it's concerning to the community as a whole.
Well, and here's the thing. I can't give you an exact date right now, and this is what I've offered to the community oftentimes. If ever you need information, you can call, you can come to the board meeting. Those areas are open. If anyone extends an invitation to me to talk about it, some people have, some haven't. I'm not trying to make excuses, but the one thing about going through a process like this, you don't always have concrete deadlines, particularly when an offer comes up. So if you want to know whether or not, I can tell you that something will happen by 2024, but it may get pushed back. And I'm sorry that's not the best answer, but that's the reality of it is.
Well, I'm just saying, you're telling me you can come to board meetings, you can call me, but you don't have an answer for me.
Yes, no, I gave you an answer. Yes, I gave you an answer.
You don't know. Your answer
but if
is
you
it
need
could be
additional
24,
answers,
24,
please come see me.
I want to clarify. Your answer is you don't know if it will be demolished. You do not know if it will be purchased.
My answer is the first option is to dispose of, to sell it. If we cannot sell it at this point, yes, we will pursue demolition.
Do you have any interested buyers? I am trying to get an answer.
Yes.
Okay. And so you are negotiating with those buyers once you receive an appraisal that has not been done yet?
The appraisal was done in October of 2020. The appraisal is no longer valid.
Okay.
HUD, for us to do a negotiated sale, the expectation is that we have to have another appraisal. We have been working on getting an appraisal. It's not that easy during this time and this market, but the effort has been put in.
Okay, we're going to have to do
Pardon me?
yes or no.
No, we're not.
Yes, ma'am.
No,
Because
no,
I'm
no,
not
no, we're
getting a
not.
clear answer.
Because see,
My
this is what I want
question-
you to understand.
Please
The
don't
reason
interrupt
why
me,
I'm here,
ma'am.
I don't work for the city. I'm
I didn't
here
say
as
that
a
you did,
courtesy.
and I'm trying to
And if
get
you have additional
clarification.
questions, please feel free to call me, but this is not the forum for us to try to figure out what it is I'm not delivering to you at this moment.
Well,
But I'm
if-
more than happy to provide it.
If you are discussing Parkside, it is fair for me to ask, what is your plan with Parkside? My question was, are you planning to sell it? Do you plan to demolish it? Are there any answers in either direction? You say you are waiting on an appraisal that has not been scheduled. Yes, ma'am, or no, ma'am? Before you can decide to sell it or demolish it.
Yes.
Okay. And so at this point, you have no clear answer as to what you are going to do with Parkside.
Yes, if that's the way you want to look at it, but I will say we do have a clear strategy. And this is a strategy that we've been working on for several years.
Exactly, several years, ma'am. I'm not trying to be rude. I'm not trying to go back and forth with you. I would like a clear answer. And at this time, you cannot give me that.
Well, no, you're not willing to accept that, and that's fine.
I mean,
That's fine, but
you
we
didn't give
can't-
me a
we
clear
can't
yes or
extend-
no. Are we
can't
doing this?
extend
Are
to
we
you a
doing
clear
that?
answer
You
if
gave
this is
me
not acceptable
options.
for you.
You gave me options that you have.
Okay, well, my apologies if this came off as just being options, but I really felt that I was being clear. If you need additional information, I can leave my card, you can give me a call, and we can sit down, or we can plan a complete presentation around all of this, but
I don't want a
you to have full
presentation until
clarity.
you have answers.
Pardon me?
I don't want a presentation until you have answers, an appraisal, a decision to sell, or a decision to demolish. Those are the three questions that I asked you.
Okay, well, thank you, and I will take that in consideration. Does anyone have any other questions?
Wow.
Did you have answers to either of, you didn't have, I mean, your answers?
I mean, do you?
We just want
I'm not-
clarity, and I'm
not
getting
gonna-
attitude,
I'm not
and
gonna-
I don't like
I don't
it.
have an attitude.
Ma'am.
But what you don't understand is that.
I understand when I ask you a yes or no question, and you tell me you ain't gonna give me a yes or no answer.
No, I did not say that.
Yes, you said I'm not gonna do that. I
No, I
understand
said I'm
that
not-
clear
I'm
as
not going
day.
to continue to
So if
repeat
I'm asking you
myself,
for
and no, I won't-
clarification
I
and you
won't.
Okay,
cannot
ladies,
give me
ladies,
that,
this is getting a little
Don't do
bit
that, ma'am.
out of control. Let's
you
try
were
to bring some
completely
resolve
out of
to
line.
this.
I'm asking for clarification, and you won't give me that. And I never said you did.
Do we have?
I wanted answers to my questions.
Okay. Are there any other questions from any other council members, since, we don't want to monopolize just one? Anyone else have a question for Ms. Babette?
Yes, what was the appraisal in 2020?
I didn't hear the first part. Appraiser in 2020? Can
The
you,
appraisal that was done in 2020?
who did it?
What was it?
No, what was?
It was a complete appraisal of Parkside, of the Parkside developments. It was conducted by Midwest.
For how much?
How much the appraisal cost or the value?
Oh my God. The value?
Oh, the value of the properties, what is non-residential and the land, the value is 140,000.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for your presentation, Babette. Item number 10 is the second reading of ordinance 2023-26. Could you please read this for the record?
Ordinance revising various provisions of the codified ordinances of the City of Freeport to rename the position of Director of Utility Operations to Utility Superintendent.
Manager Boyer.
Thank you, Your Honor. As previously discussed, I'm requesting council approve the change in job title along with change in job description. Those changes have been provided to council for review. And the overall purpose for this is to increase our the access to applicants for this position. At the current time, we had recently a superintendent of streets position open. We only had 2 applicants, and as the position is of me that without changes to this job description, we will have a difficult time replacing this position, the Utility Director of Operations, which is what I've been serving in temporarily since 2020. So staff requests City Council approve the change in position title to Utility Superintendent.
Thank you. Are there any new questions?
I have a
Alderman Sellers?
Yes, I would like to know what's the reasoning for what's the difference between director and superintendent? I'd like to know what it is with pay, vacation, title, responsibility. Yep, salary, yeah, that was.
Sure. On this particular proposal, the qualifications it would require for Director of Utility Operations is a 4-year degree, where Utility Superintendent is not. The current pay for the Director of Utility Operations is currently at $95,000. However, various director positions have changed since this was last reviewed, and it would be most likely a little higher than that moving forward, whereas the utility superintendent position would be at a lower pay grade commensurate with the street superintendent, around $72,000. And as far as the qualifications, it's more beneficial to the city to have someone with a more hands-on experience, understanding the various factors that apply in the distribution and collection system, as well as plant operations. Whereas a director may have a more higher level executive background. At this time, I feel that it is more advantageous for the city to have a day-to-day manager for the utility instead of a director with the more higher level planning requirements.
Alderman Sanders?
Mr. Boyer, okay, I hear all of the particulars that you're mentioning, but do we have anything in writing of a job description of these characters?
Yes, Alderman, yes.
Can we obtain those? Can you make sure that we get some kind of document showing the full scope?
I can absolutely give that to you. However, that was available. That is available and was sent out with a draft agenda.
Yeah, because that would help us to understand why this has been.
And where does he find that? Because it was available. Where does he look?
It was emailed with the draft agenda.
In your email.
When you look on the view. Alderman Mayor, I have another.
Yeah, Alderman Sellers.
I said Alderman. Just wanted to know, how long have you had this position out there to receive the applicants that you got? You know, you said you only received 2. How long has it been out there looking for this position to be filled?
I didn't mean to be unclear. I was referring to the street superintendent position. I published that for the required amount of time, and we only received 2 applicants. So I believe that it's going to be a long time before we receive qualified applicants for the director of operations. And what I believe I need right now is someone to manage the day-to-day operations of the plant and the distribution and collection crews, ensure that our compliance is being met through our NPDES and our water and wastewater regulations. And I also feel that this is a change because it would be improve our number of candidates that we would get versus a director of operation or director of utility operations requiring a 4-year degree.
So, excuse me, so you're saying that lowering the pay and lowering, not having the degree, do you think that's not necessary of having that experience of that? Or are you just saying you think a day-to-day person would be more experienced than having?
I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. Go ahead.
So I guess that's what I want to know. Do you think that lowering the title a little bit is better than keeping it at the position and just waiting till we could find somebody as the director?
Sure. I wouldn't say it would be better. However, I think folks with hands-on experience and have demonstrated leadership and ability to manage successfully in their organization with or without a degree is an advantage to the city. And as far as in comparison with the director position, it would be nice to have all those qualifications. However, in the current environment, where we are having difficulty getting qualified candidates for the jobs we currently have open. I think this one would remain unfilled for a long period of time. So, and I could very much use the assistance at this time as having taken on the city manager position.
So, so are you saying that you already have your eye on a person already that is hands-on? You already have that in mind? That's what you want to use?
Well, it's always a good idea to look internally at your best people, right? If you don't look internally for your best people, you're really overlooking an important asset. However, no decisions have been made. This is just going to be the first step in the publishing of the job description and solicitation for the position online on the city website.
Mayor?
Alderman
Madam
Sanders?
Mayor,
Just 1 minute, Alderman Stacy. Alderman Sanders has been called on.
I didn't hear it. Oh, okay.
Madam Mayor,
One moment, Alderman Stacy.
Manager Boyer, you said you would like to consider people within the ranks of the city. This is from your perspective and your opinion, is that correct?
I think it's best if you provide an upward mobility for the folks that do the day-to-day, every day at the city and have shown
I could
good
not
propensity.
disagree with you.
Yeah. But at the same time, outside candidates would definitely be reviewed and
Okay,
considered.
so what are you considering right now? Who in the ranks are you considering right now?
I think there's a number of different people that may.
So we
be
do
interested.
have a counting list of
I have an
individuals.
idea of folks that may have some background that would be very beneficial to the city. However, this particular change in this job description is so that we can move forward with posting the job for consideration by internal or external applicants.
Okay, so we would like to consider internal first, though, right?
One would say that someone with internal knowledge and ability may have a leg up on the external candidate, assuming all else being equal, because they already have the understanding of the various particulars that go on within the department. However, that is by no means assurance that that would be the outcome.
Okay, so the candidate outside of the ranks has a considerable, some credentials, I should say, should have some form of credentials to demonstrate they could be potentially qualified. How does he get to that point? Is there a private, public, or private assessment of this individual's credentials?
I believe you're kind of you're kind of getting around to the EPA licensing and that type of thing.
I'm
Am I-
exploring.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess to best answer your question, I'd say that external candidate, internal candidate, person with the good credentials would be most likely the successful candidate.
Yeah, because we haven't considered whether or not he's eligible as far as his grading strategy, his graduation certificates and things of this nature. We have made an assessment of all of these things because that's who we're looking for. Somebody that at least have a high school diploma, not a GED, but a diploma. And then we need to observe. We have to have an observation of an application that he's placing on file. So we need to know who this character or potential characters are that prefer to want to run that position. Are we referring to? Oh, he's gone. I see he's gone. Any individuals from the water treatment plant or water plant?
I would.
Okay, just 1 second. Alderman Sanders, we don't get involved in the hiring process. That's not the job of the council or the mayor. The job is before you is about the creation of the position.
Okay. got you. Okay, a created position, I got you, okay. And that's kind of broad, though. It's very broad. But anyway, yeah, we want to be supportive of those subjective opinions, ones that we had not heard about, read about, to make sure the eligibility is in compliance with everything that we, as a council, desire to know and hear and be able to vote on these kinds of things. So we'll look at it. Are we making a motion today?
Yes.
This has been, this is second reading, so you've heard, this is the second or
Madam
possibly
Mayor.
the third time that you've heard about this director
Have I?
position.
Okay.
Yep.
Madam Mayor,
Yeah, Alderman Stacy?
Madam Mayor,
Alderman Stacy?
Go ahead.
yes, I'm trying to ask a question.
Go ahead.
May I ask a question?
Yes, you've been called.
By changing the title from director to supervisor, do that reduce the qualification?
Alderwoman Stacy, yes, that would change the job description in general. So that would change the qualifications, the duties, and all that's available there in the council packet email.
You said it's all available where? In the memo?
Yeah, in the council packet.
It was emailed with their draft
In the view.
agenda on
Get the
Thursday.
view.
It was emailed with the draft agenda on Thursday.
Alderman Sellers?
Yes, I would just like to know, why do you feel that that's good to lower the qualifications for,
The standard.
for our city, public work with the way that, people are complaining about the streets and, the city already? Why would we want to lower the standard instead of, raising it up? Because that's one of our, top things that, the streets are horrible, this and that. So I would just like to know, why would you want to lower it?
Sure. Well, as far as the streets are concerned, this position is over the utility, so the streets are a separate issue. However, to your point, having a superintendent would provide us with the day-to-day hands-on management, the bare minimum that I require. However, I am also a licensed water wastewater operator, and we have 2 licensed Class 1 wastewater operators, and we have several drinking water operators. I'm sorry, there's 3 qualified wastewater operators, and then there's several drinking water. So this would be more of a day-to-day management, more like the street superintendent, whereas the utility director had more say-so over, say, dealing with the water commission that was dissolved several years ago. I just don't think it's necessary to have a director as we had in the past. Some of those duties have also been split off. We have a compliance officer now that we didn't have in the past, and she's actually in charge of making sure that all of our regulatory compliance is completed. And we also have multiple qualified operators on staff where we weren't always in that same condition and position. So I believe this is is essentially what we can do to deal with the day-to-day management in the most efficient way possible. So I hope that answers your question.
It did. Just one more question. I know you're saying is that the starting pay, the 72,000? What are they looking at in bonuses or pay scale or, anything like that? I know we always talk about, we don't have, money for this, we don't have money for that. 72,000, I just want to know.
Well, the current director of utilities was at 95,000. So this is actually a reduction or a positive impact to the budget. However, to answer your question, any annual raises and that kind of stuff would be voted on by council or is built into a normal cost of living increase. So, yeah.
Question, please. Does this decision have to be made tonight?
Well, we're
Actually, it's on second reading, so at the last council meeting, that's the procedure that you determined to go forward, was to move it to second reading, which normally then is finish any discussion and then you take a vote.
But if we needed more time to look at the candidates and to look at what all this
Well,
entails.
there isn't, this isn't about looking at a candidate, Alderman Stacy, this is about creating the position.
Madam Mayor,
Alderman Clem?
if I could, just based a little on where we've come in the last X number of years. I wasn't there for all of them, but it seemed with the tour that we had and the explanations we've had from both Fair Graham, the people that work for him, with Director Boyer here, and with the newly licensing of 2 or 3 people in the thing, I can go along with it that it does make sense to do it as being a hands-on person. Now, I was here when we had one director that was paid the $95,000 plus and couldn't do what this particular person is doing. So what you're asking for, it seems to be in line as a hands-on person to run the water company, and there's a bunch of responsible people behind him, I think, that'll be overseeing it.
If there's no further discussion?
I guess I have one more question.
Sure.
Yes, I would just like to know, if it didn't go through tonight, will we go back to director? You know, looking for a position that would fill for the director.
I'd have to give that some serious thought. I can't answer that very well right now. So I'd have to go back and really reevaluate what we're doing. But I did put this forward as what I thought was the best alternative, not only for the city, but also for any potential internal or external candidate that would come along. I think it'd be very difficult to find a person with a water, wastewater, and a bachelor's degree. That would be a big challenge. And as having recently taken over a city manager, I could use the extra supervisory help now. If I don't have it, it just creates an additional burden, which is acceptable, and I'm able to deal with it, but it would take important resources away from things I should be doing.
If there's no further discussion, Madam Clerk, please take the roll.
Stacy?
No.
Shadle?
Aye.
Sanders?
No.
Sellers?
No.
Clem?
Aye.
Simmons? No. The motion fails 4-2.
Move
I'm
on to
sorry, the ordinance failed.
We'll move on to item number 11, which is the second reading of ordinance 2023-28. Could you please read this for the record?
Variance application at 1726 Southwest Avenue submitted by Phil McDermott, 312 Beef and Sausage, to examine the variance application to allow a sign up to up to 40 feet in a B21 limited service business district. Height restrictions are set to 27 feet per code 1468.27C.
Thank you. Director Duckman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Staff received a sign permit application on February 23rd, 2023 to erect a sign with a maximum height of 40 feet. And the requirement at the current location is 27 feet. So on May 4th, the Zoning Board of Appeals recommended approval of the petitioner's request by a vote of 5 yeas, 0 nays, and 0 abstentions. And on May 11th of 2023, the Planning Commission recommended approval by a vote of 5 yeas, 0 nays, and 0 abstentions. IDOT, on the May 11th Planning Commission meeting, it was also stated that in conjunction with the variation approval, we would still want to see an IDOT approval. And at the last council meeting, this was also mentioned about the IDOT approval. And along with a couple of other requests from council, council had requested for me to see a site plan. They were also requesting to see some sort of correspondence from IDOT regarding the approval or any other required applications, permit applications. And then it was also requested to have a structural analysis. I do want to give credit to Phil McDermott and his team. They worked extremely hard with me, not only through the variation application, but to get these requested materials to me, to work in conjunction. And essentially, I do want to state, to go above and beyond. A structural analysis is not part of a variation, but Mr. McDermott was more than happy to get this information to me. On the 4 items I mentioned, the site plan, I provided a site plan, an elevation view, and an IDOT letter stating that no further permit would be required from their organization. And I also provided the structural analysis from Willett Hoffman upon your request. And I distributed that information to all of you via email. And in light of the Zoning Board of Appeals recommendation, as well as the Planning Commission recommendation, staff recommends approval of this variation.
Questions?
Madam Mayor.
Alderman Sanders, I'm sorry.
Madam, what'd I say?
Yeah, you said it right.
Twins.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry if I'm confusing these titles. Okay. I hear what you're saying, Mr. Duckman, in the developing stages that you've gone through. But there are some very important other stages that has not been considered, has not been signed off on by these other agencies, that is going to give them the right of way, because the city is not going to absorb mishaps. And every paperwork document that needs to be examined by each agencies who are going to be giving their opinions, because what you're reciting back to me was just an opinion. You know, the zoning board, the other board, all these boards that's given their approval, but they have nothing to do with the city councils giving their approval, because we can see beyond certain aspects of this development. And the thing about it is, we need to continue to talk, you know, because I want them to be in compliance, and I want them to be able to tell us that they got their I's dotted and their T's crossed. We're not here to object to any developing owners of whatever their progress, their prowl is, whatever they're trying to do. We're not here to stop them in their tracks.
Well, I do want to say, I did submit to yourself, as well as every alder person here, I did submit in an email, it says very clearly that IDOT has no interest in seeing any other permit applications. So if you're talking about the right-of-way, IDOT has already stated to myself, and passing on the information to you, the Illinois Department of Transportation is not going to require any more permits from them.
We need that in writing.
Sure, I have it right here.
Okay,
I handed it to you. I emailed it to you.
And then we can move on.
It's in your email.
Okay.
I did, and
Okay.
I did email that. I know it. I emailed it.
I don't have my tablets, email set up. I don't have any of that going on.
Madam Mayor?
Alderman Stacy?
Yes, I just have a question for Director Duckman.
Go ahead.
Why have ordinance in place and then not uphold them?
Yes. Well, we are upholding them. When we reviewed their permit application, I told Mr. McDermott, I said, sir, you cannot build a sign this high. You would have to go through a variation. Our ordinance provides for the variation process. So as a staff member representing the city, I followed the ordinance to a T. I said, you cannot by right, by ordinance, build the sign. You have to go through the variation process in order to do so. And I will state for the record, as an applicant, he provided all the information I requested from him and then some. And I will tell you, I have followed the ordinance to a T, and the applicant has followed an ordinance to a T. And I'm being open and transparent and can provide any other information you need. But when it comes to following the ordinance, I have done so to a T.
So is it fair to say that if we do it for one, we'll do it for all?
Yes, anybody who asks for a variation is granted so. That is with or without my recommendation. There are situations where I will tell a permanent applicant, I do not agree with this variation. It does not match our ordinance and what a variation would fit. And they said, well, thank you for your opinion. I'm going to move forward in the process. So yes, anybody who comes to my office and department and asks for a variation will be granted so with or without my recommendation.
Sounds good.
Attorney Zito?
Just a point of clarification, Mr. Duckman. When you say granted, so you don't mean that the variance is granted, but they're allowed to file the application.
Correct, yes, and thank you for pointing that out. Yes, I will allow and put them through the process if they fill out their application.
And has this particular one, Mr. McDermott, has he followed all those processes?
Yes, he has. Yes, he has been, anytime I asked him for information, he has provided it, and he gave a detailed site plan, structural analysis. He has given that information, yes.
Madam Mayor,
Alderman Sanders?
do we have the overview package?
Yes, I provided all of that via email to everybody. It was last week.
Okay. Okay, because I still got issues in the back of my mind.
Well, I can be clear that Willett Hoffman, a structural engineer, did sign the permit, has already signed saying that, signed the sign application, but they've already put their professional seals saying that this sign is structurally safe. So that, I would hope, ease your mind. And then I would also can state for the record that IDOT has said in writing in an email that they do not have any more information. They're not asking for any more information.
Okay. Okay. Man, there's got to be another study that, because I'm not hearing the language in regards to the safety provisions and things of that nature that has not been explored enough. Because God forbid an incident occur because we didn't go far enough in our studies.
Well, I can attest to that. I know that once that structural engineer put his seal on that drawing, that liability is on him now. That profession is on him.
Okay,
and
so
if he's going to put that on, if he's going to put his name on it, he believes in the design.
Well, my question would be then, who are the supervisors, the inspectors, that's going to govern that whole site? We need to know that we're confident enough to know that somebody has the competency to overlook and understand the process, what's going on, because we don't want to come back and this thing bite us in the ass. You know, that's all I'm saying.
Okay, so the process is what you are entrusting to all these different pieces of so, and each one of these pieces has given their stamp of approval. That's how it's come to you, so you can say, yes, I agree with your findings, because you've done all your homework.
Who, me?
No, the people that we entrust, they have done all their homework.
Yeah, okay. Okay, well, yeah, that's what I'm leaning toward, because we have seen big skyscrapers fall right out of the sky on somebody's architectural work.
We also have structural engineers go to jail for that.
Thank you.
We have structural engineers go to jail for that when they approve it.
Okay, thank
so
you.
that,
I needed to hear that.
Yes. No, I'm not saying that to be rude, but I know for a fact a structural engineer will go to jail if they did some stamped, sealed design they should not have.
Yeah, well, I just wanted the information to further my education.
Sure.
So I would suggest you, Alderman Sanders, that you get your email working so that way you can get up to speed on each one of these things because it's all in the information.
I don't have no control over that.
Your emails?
Oh, I will be though. Okay, thank you. My brother over here is,
Alderman Sellers.
Yeah, I just have a quick question. I know on the first reading, when they were asking about all this, it was saying that we can't see, I guess people can't see their business. Well, I mean, I wrote out because I wanted to, I knew where it was, but I wanted to just see, and I was able to look and see all the way from Casey's and all the way from where Starbucks was. So I know they have a lot of signs on there, so, I mean, I don't mind the sign. I just concerned with from 20, going up 13 more feet, like Alderman Stacy said, are we going to start going up higher, or is there a cutoff on how high you can have a sign anyway?
There is. Our ordinance has a 45-foot maximum height of a sign. And so one thing that I talked about in the first reading is that it's because of the way our ordinance reads is it's a percentage or ratio of the width of the lot frontage.
Yeah.
So I think what I'm talking about here is, had this been a wider lot, he could do this sign without the variation process because he would have had the width that would have allowed him to have the height of the sign. So the 45 feet under, no matter how wide your lot is, 45 feet is our ordinance for the maximum height. So he's lower than the maximum in that sense, in that analysis.
Madam Mayor.
Alderman Shadle.
I, as well, spent a little time out there. Some of the people at some of the businesses might have thought I was a stalker. Harbor Freight's got a sign that, in my estimation, is about 30 feet. McDonald's, Wendy's probably 40 feet. The Meadows Mall probably 30 feet. The Shell Station probably 25. Walgreens about 20, and Mobile might be lucky if they're 20. I don't think we need to get into a bunch of one-upmanship with going higher. Sitting down from Casey's and then further down at Logan's, you wouldn't get an absolutely perfect view of that 27-foot sign, but you would see it. To keep going with up to 40, my opinion, I feel it's excessive. Thank you.
Madam Mayor,
Alderman Clem.
since I was the one that brought this up last time, based upon the drawing that you sent us, I see one real problem is the bottom sign is a gaming sign, okay, that is 10 feet off the ground. Now, if you're gonna pull out of one of those stores there in a truck and look both ways, guess what you're gonna see? Big whatever gaming, blah, blah, blah. I think, based upon that, if everybody saw that and figured out, that sign is, I believe, 6 foot high, I marked on there, and when you take the bottom off of it, it's 10 foot off the ground. Now, that's, in my mind, gonna block stuff. And like I brought up before, there's currently 4 to 5 signs on the building. It's the closest building to West Street. It's been there for 50 years as a food establishment. If, to me, the 27 feet, if he wants to put one up 27 feet, that's fine.
And Tom, I just want to make a clarification here. He can put up that 10-foot sign with the 27-foot above it. So I just want you to know that if you're basing your decision on a 40-foot maximum height, it shouldn't be for the 10-foot height of that sign, because that sign would be allowed.
If it blocks view, it's a problem. Are we worrying about safety, or what are we worrying about?
I'm talking today about a variation for the maximum height. So I
understand
can
that,
say,
but I'm bringing up a safety factor that's going to be there.
if
So
that,
if he wants to put it there and put the 10-foot sign there, you're going to be the first guy I'm going to call when it doesn't work.
absolutely, and I would certainly review it. It's still going to be reviewed by our team for that 10-foot sign. So what I want to be clear, though, this is for a variation for a 40-foot sign. So,
Understand that.
so if you're,
Don't go along with it, so thank you.
okay?
Madam Mayor,
Alderman Sanders?
am I saying that wrong? I apologize. Okay. How long has that place been in existence?
I believe it's a little over a year is when, yes, it was in my
Now,
time here, so it would be probably about a
How long
year.
has that building been a business?
10, 20 years, I know, when I did the special use application, so probably 20 years at least.
We have ordinances for building height and poles and signs in our city at this point in time.
Yes, we do.
But the individual that needs a modification for a taller sign, he wants to have the city to go along with his permit. Did we clear his permits?
He's asking today for a variation in height, and eventually, yes, he would be going through quickly and asking me for a building permit, which is 100% in line with our process.
Now, I understand that he wants to do all of these kinds of things, but we as a whole, and some of the input of the citizens and the public should have something to say, because if they're taking chances of their lives traveling back and forth down this particular area, that would kind of like give people a hesitant or apprehension about going in that area, knowing that this thing has not been fully approved. And what we're trying to do is make sure that the people of this city have no reason to have no doubt that thing will withstand.
They did have an opportunity to speak at the public hearing at the Zoning Board of Appeals. That's part of the process, and the public does have they're duly noticed. The surrounding neighbors all receive mail notifications. It's published in the newspaper.
Okay.
There's also a sign put on the actual, property, and they do have an opportunity. The public does have an opportunity to speak at the hearing and give testimony as to for or against the proposed variation. So the public had been notified of this sign variation, and then we did have a hearing, and there was not a public comment against the variation, and the ZBA at the end of that hearing ultimately did recommend approval.
Okay.
So Director Duckman, just to be clear, there was opportunity for the public to have input, and there was no one that disagreed.
You are correct in that statement, yes.
And the zoning board approved it?
They did approve it by a vote of 5 yeas, 0 nays, 0 abstentions on May 4th.
And the planning commission approved
Yes, it did.
the same way?
Correct. Unanimous. 5 yeas, 0 nays, and 0 abstentions.
And any other part of the process is all cleared? Everyone is in agreement? It's just a matter of, will the council be in agreement with all the findings that have been taken place?
For the variation process, that is correct. Everything has been followed to a T.
Alderman Shadle?
Just, Alderman Sanders, just to put you at ease a little bit in that Willett Hoffman letter that I handed to you, the engineering numbers that they put on there for the depth of the hole and the reinforcing welded rebar, everything, I've put a lot of light pole bases in my time, which are substantially smaller than this situation. But this is very well engineered, and the numbers and the quantities and the amount of concrete that he's got engineered for that, with the cage and the specifications on the size of the rebar in the cage and the fact that it's welded and not tied.
Did they do it?
It is an exceptional job of engineering, and I don't think in my opinion, I don't think that should be a concern.
You don't think so? Well, I put it like this here, Brother Shado. There have not been a soil boil testing, swamp testing. That building, that whole site there sits on a hill, and it has been carved into. It has not been sand boil tested. All of these kinds of I don't know who you've been talking to get this kind of stuff approved of. There's all kinds of underground activity that's taking place on this building as we are talking right now. And until we see these analyses and until we're able to determine whether these analyses are correct, we are not going to just simply roll over, because there's a lot of exogens going on. There's a lot of stuff happening under those, even under those gas stations, McDonald's, all of that. We have not explored the history of that particular ground area to put buildings on. I've been looking at that for years, and I'm saying to myself, I hate for one of those buildings just fold over on top of someone, and that's what worries me. And so I'm just saying, we have not done. I don't believe we've done the full studies that we need to do. That's my opinion. I need to see it in writing that they have done these kinds of things, and then we can all go lay down at night knowing that the people that are going to these facilities are going to be okay. That's all I'm saying. I'm just there with that. Because I've seen too much. I've been living in Freeport for over 50 years. I worked for the city for over 30 years. Somewhere close by, I believe I did. But anyway, I still kept up with all of the developments, things of this city, projects and things of this nature, because I'm always inquiring about these kinds of things. But the thing about it is, I just don't want us to just lie down and say, okay, we approve this. I feel like I need more, but I'm going to step aside, because my colleagues needs to be able to assess it and give their inputs as well. No, every one of you guys. I'm just saying.
Director Duckman, who is responsible for whatever soil issues there are within the city?
Any time you're going to build a structure, there is no higher power than a structural engineer. If that were to collapse, God forbid, I would never want that to happen. The first person they're going to go to is the structural engineer, and they're going to be that's their liability. Soil, the footings. Alderman Shadle did an excellent job of explaining what that looks like in practical terms, because sometimes you're going to look at a structural analysis and not understand what those numbers mean. And I thought that was a very polite gesture of Alderman Shadle to do that, to say, you know, he's an electrician, he's been on many job sites, he knows what these look like, and he sees many light poles, utility poles go up. In what he was saying in practical terms, not speaking for him, that I witnessed was him showing you this is an very well built structure. It's going, you know, from practical side of the blueprints he's seen in the past, he's saying this would fit, this would hold. So a structural engineer is the authority on that.
So, and that has been approved.
Well, let's go back to that, because this is more, the information sent normally is not even submitted to me until a building permit is done. So the petitioner is going above and beyond and investing his own money that he will not get back if it's voted no.
Absolutely.
He invested heavily.
These are the risks, excuse me, Madam Mayor. These are the risks that any homeowner, business owner, is going to absorb, because the hiring has to come from their perspective, but they still got to go by the guidelines of the ordinances that the city put together. And if we're trying to hurdle over these ordinances, that's where we go wrong.
Attorney Zito.
Just to I think a point of clarification, though. I don't, I think that all Director Duckman is saying is that right now, we're at a step. Let's say we're at step 3. The borings and all that sort of stuff, or confirming that the soil is right or that comes at the building permit process there. So it's still coming there, but that's not where we're at right now. So the city will still have a period of time to confirm that their contractors, are going to install it right, make sure that the soil is right, and if it's not, then they're going to have to adjust their plans and make sure that the plans are adjusted to account for the type of soil that's there or whatever it is. But I think that's still coming. We're not at that stage right now. And normally you would not make the applicant incur that cost up front without knowing that their variance has been approved.
Okay.
Are there any other aldermen that would like to have a question on this? No further discussion? Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll on the passage of the second reading of the ordinance 2023-28?
Stacy?
No.
Shadle?
No.
Sanders?
No.
Sellers?
No.
Clem?
No.
Simmons?
Matter if I say yes or not at this point. No.
It was no.
It was no.
Is that correct? Did I hear
Yes,
you
ma'am.
correctly?
Can you, my math, sorry.
The motion fails 0-6. And the ordinance fails as well.
Move on to item number 12, which is the adoption of Resolution 2023-45. Could you please read this?
Excuse me. Resolution approving engineering agreement with Fair Graham for 2023 Public Works Master Services Agreement.
Manager Boyer.
Thank you, Your Honor. The City of Freeport requires professional public works assistance for various civil, environmental, engineering, and project management duties on the daily basis to run the city department effectively and efficiently. The city does not have the existing staff to be able to handle the volume of daily duties required by the large department overseeing streets, water, storm, etc. The city manager is requesting professional assistance as needed from Fairgraham to assist him in oversight of the department and specifically duties related to various civil, environmental, engineering, and project management related services that require an expertise level of knowledge and experience. This Public Works Master Services Agreement would provide a team of local experts for the city as a resource. And I might add, in place of a Public Works Director for a temporary period of time, which would allow us to do a proper search and hire the correct person, not have our resources overtaxed in that search process. Funding for this project is through the Public Works General Fund budget, about 50%, and 25% of which would be from water and another 25% from sewer. The total cost of these professional services are estimated at about $100,000 on a time and materials basis as needed and directed by the city manager or department directors. This contract would be significant savings to the city resolution to a public works director position with salary and benefits in the compensation package. Staff recommends the city approve moving forward with appointing Fairgraham for public works professional related assistance. Current Fairgraham is the city's master service engineer and is involved in a majority of design and construction management of the public works related projects. Additionally, their team has superior knowledge of the existing city infrastructure, budgeting, funding, and future infrastructure planning. And this is in alignment with the strategic plan. Responsible and efficient government prioritizes investments in the project management and operation of the city's infrastructure team for long-term sustainability and reliability. Approval of this proposal provides the necessary resources to maintain public works related services.
Alderman Shadle.
Manager Boyer, this wouldn't be a day-to-day oversight of all operations. This would be more of just a specific as needed. We need to redo this inlet. How do we do that? type of a situation?
Yes, that's correct. It'd basically be second set of hands for me while we begin the process of looking for a new public works director. I need somebody out in the field helping to direct activities, ensuring that we're moving forward with our council-led priorities and accomplishing them with quality, cost, and timing in mind.
Thank you.
Madam
Alderman
Mayor?
Sellers?
Oh, go ahead, Tom.
No, go ahead.
Go first. Go ahead.
Just a follow-up, Manager Blair. This is over and above and separately other than from the other contract from Fairgram? Because
Yes,
they're
that's
tied
correct.
in on, like you say, on the managerial thing, and they've been good partners in that and everything else. And I went through this, and basically you sent some of the numbers that, you know, I requested and needed and stuff, so I appreciate that. I just wanted to make sure it was separate from that. Would it cease at the point of after someone is on board, that someone would work with them for a period of time, correct? I would assume?
Yes, and if I hopefully can answer that question. So this is basically time and material,
Right.
so up to $100,000. However, once we've identified a candidate and brought them on board, there would probably be a transition period before they completely take over. But yeah, it would be a very nice transition for any oncoming public works director. But yes, it would be over at that end.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
I think with me, my concern, or, you know, my feelings are, we're taking money from the water and sewer, but we just put that on all the citizens, a $20, I mean, it might not be much to you, but somebody else that, you know, now we just put a $20 bill added to someone, and then now we want to say, we want to take out of the water and sewer 100,000. You know, I know you said that it might not be that much, but still, just knowing that, we don't know how long it could be. So I think with me, that's what my problem is just that we just put that on people, and a lot of people are complaining, you know, hitting me up, you know. What do I say now when I say, okay, now we're gonna take $100,000 out of the water and, you know, out of the water and sewer, and we're gonna pay, I know we need somebody there, but is there anything else that we can do besides $100,000? You know, that's what, I guess, my question.
Well, maybe I can address that. So it's already budgeted for in the form of a public works director. I am no longer filling that position. So the money has already been budgeted, about 50% from the general fund and an additional 50% from the utility. So it'd be no change. Actually, it'd be a reduction as pay and benefits would actually be more than this contract agreement. So it would actually, for the interim, save the city money.
Madam Mayor?
Alderman Clem?
And that, the 50% from this and 25% from the two figures, that's what basically the salary comes out of, correct? So it's not changing any funding, it's just using the funding that's existing for this particular agreement.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
I just have another question.
Go ahead.
Madam Mayor.
Oh,
Actually, Alderman Sellers has the floor.
okay. No, I just wanted to know.
Madam Mayor.
Oh, just a second, see. Is that proper protocol to be paid like that? You know, 50% from some, you know, is that proper to have that done out of the water and sewer like that, being paid?
Yes.
question.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Did you?
No, that's it.
I believe I understand what you're getting at. Yeah, so roughly 50% of the duties of the Public Works Director come from the enterprise fund. That includes water and sewer. And 50% comes from the general fund, generally allocated towards streets. So there's nothing really different than anything than the current arrangement if we had the position filled, except for the fact that there would not be any additional benefit. The cost of benefits would not be included in this agreement for Graham. It would be actually less money than what is currently budgeted for a public works director. And in addition to that, the city would be saving the benefits that would be paid to an individual in this position.
Alderman Stacy?
Okay, I am a little mixed up between 2 and 3. I'm sorry, 12 and 13. One of them, if I am not mistaken, is speaking of putting $100,000 salary on a position, a new position for Fairground. Manager Boyer.
Yeah, Alderwoman Stacy, this is the funds that if we had someone to replace me as Public Works Director right now, these funds would be paid out to that replacement. For Graham or anyone else, it would simply be used to fill the position. So there's no change except for the fact that this agreement actually saves the city probably something on the order of $20,000 or $30,000 a year.
Have we even started seeking applicants for your old position?
The answer to that is we have not begun the search yet.
You know, I too, being a citizen of Freeport, Illinois, I'm very concerned that when it comes to the water plant and all the repairs that we're told it's needed and all the money we're told that it's going to cost, we don't have $100,000 to put towards fixing that. But we have $100,000 to set aside for a company we already have hired as our engineering company. Isn't that like double dipping?
I don't agree with that. We've done this in the past when Tom Kapansky, the former utility director, stepped down in the fall of 2020. We temporarily hired Fairgram to stand in as our contract operator for the time being that it took to get qualified operators on trained up and qualified.
Attorney Zito has a comment.
And just maybe, so if I can maybe try to rephrase the issue a little bit for everybody. So currently, we have a Public Works Director, right? And that Public Works Director position is vacant. And normally, we have an allocated amount that we spend on that Public Works Director's salary and their benefits, right? But because that position is vacant right now, that work still needs to be done. Rob used to be the Public Works Director, but now because he's the city manager, he can't do both fully. So he's asking for, on a temporary basis, for someone to come in until we can find the actual new Public Works Director there on an interim basis. He's asking for some assistance from Fairgram to help with doing the Public Works Director duties there. And so the money that was allocated to pay the Public Works Director, that's what's going, that same pot of money is what would be used to pay Fairgram on this temporary basis until the new Public Works Director can be found, in which case then the Fairgram contract would stop and then the money would go to pay the Public Works Director.
That would be an interim?
It's on a temporary basis, correct, until the Public Works Director can be found, which is why you heard the Rob mention it's on a time and materials basis. That just means as jobs come in or as they're needed, they just track their time, they track their materials, how much they spend, and that's what we get billed, not to exceed $100,000. We've budgeted more than $100,000 for the Public Works Director, so that's where Director Boyer is saying that this is actually a savings because we're paying Fairgram less. Again, this is not a new position. This is just about having somebody do the job of the Public Works Director or help do the job of the Public Works Director until we can fill that position with somebody, because Rob can't do all of it himself.
Mayor Miller, I have another question. when do you plan on putting it out there to get started on looking for someone to fill that position? Do you have a timeline on when you want to?
Yes, obviously as soon as we can, but because of the qualifications, I'm anticipating a fairly long search process, and I'm also interested in making sure that we have the right person in place. Right now, the city's coming into its most demanding period, construction time season, so I'm concerned about the output and quality of these projects as they're going on through the summer. And I know we're not going to be able to find someone, get them up to speed, and implement this inside of our construction season. So therefore, it's really important that we move forward and get some kind of in-between process in place. And that's what I see this particular service agreement with Fair Graham, because they are very familiar with all the roads. They're familiar with our staff. They have all the knowledge, and they have the skills and abilities to bring to the table. So I just see it as sort of a fairly straightforward request that we are currently using funds that were budgeted already for, and that this will be important so that we'll have a successful construction season this year.
Just one more question, real quick. If you put, like you said, you don't feel that it'll be a process that will happen quickly, if it was over a year, are we going to have to go back and redo this same agreement again for the same thing and keep looking, or?
I don't want to bias the process, but I would hopefully, I would hope this process wouldn't take anywhere near a year, but I don't know. I think we're just planning for the worst on this particular proposal. Being upfront about it, I think that it probably wouldn't take much more than, well, it depends on the quality of candidate, so it's really hard to say, but I would hope it'd be tidied up before a year for sure.
Madam Mayor? Brother Rod, who's temporarily running the departments as we speak?
Well, it's really up to me, and I really don't have a whole lot of time. I get a number of permits come through that need to be reviewed. We have several large rebuilds going on with Nicor, and we've got Frontier, a whole fiber optic build out that has nothing to do with our city crews. We've got the most ambitious road projects scheduled this year that we've had in a long time. We've got the wastewater treatment plant that's getting ready to move forward. We've got a lot of regulations and things that have to be maintained and ensure that we don't fall out of compliance during that process. We're about to start up a new water treatment plant. And there's just a tremendous amount of work out there that's about ready to start. And I feel that I really need the additional assistance to help manage all those projects and ensure they're successful.
Alderman Shadle.
I'm sorry.
Madam Mayor,
Oh, just a second.
Going back to item 10, would have expedited this hiring process had that passed?
To answer your question, that is a day-to-day management request. Right now, we've got water maintenance. We've got field crews that are taking care of the maintenance and day-to-day. With all of our large volume of Julies out there, our guys are spread very thin, and we've got some other, we've got challenges in hiring. So, yeah, I'm kind of getting boxed in here in terms of being able to accomplish much of anything.
The position we're talking about now.
No, that one is over the utility. That would be the, I'm sorry, are we talking about the same thing here?
Yeah, number 10 is utility.
You wanted to lower the qualifications.
Yeah, no, that is pretty much just a supervisor to ensure that we're meeting our day-to-day compliance. Someone who's going to be able to direct the field crews for water and wastewater, ensure that all of our records are being kept up, review budgets and ensure that we're staying within budgets in the utility. So that's different. That's a different role. This public works position is above that.
Brother Rod.
Madam Mayor,
Alderman Stacy.
Madam Mayor. Yes, is the new street superintendent qualified to do any of these needed duties, and if so, what?
Well, the current street superintendent is qualified to oversee the street department and forestry and animal control, and is currently involved in, as I mentioned before, one of the most aggressive construction programs we've had in many years. So he is very, very well busy with all the day-to-day activities just regarding curb, depressed gutter, street recondition, grinding, shaping, dealing with normal scheduling, overtime calls, animal calls. So he's very well overwhelmed. He pretty much works. He comes in at about anywhere between 5 and 6 a.m. and he doesn't leave till usually 4:30 or 6. So I think he's pretty well covered up on just the street reconstruction activities that we have him doing.
So there's no one else. There's no one else out there that's qualified to give you the help and service that you're needing without going this route. This is our only option.
Well, in addition to a utility superintendent, I believe that this is a reasonable suggestion moving forward, so we don't have to rush a very important decision on a public works director position. Right now, if we, just knowing how much work we're getting ready to start or have started and we're going to be responsible for, it is very important that we have some oversight, whether that's somebody we hire or whether that's a contract with Fairgram in the interim. So I'm just, relaying to you that we have a very aggressive construction schedule. I need some help. I cannot do it all myself, and I have quite a few duties already that I've taken over as city manager that I need to apply more attention to.
For the record, I feel that we drug our feet too long for knowing that Deputy Bucus was going to retire. And here we are again caught with our pants down and in need of help. And even now, I think we're focusing on hiring for the wrong position. We have got to get someone in your old position, and that should have come first. Thank you.
I have a question.
Alderman Simmons?
Mr. Boyer, it sounds as though this is how we are already operating with Fairgram in other capacities. When we need them, we go to them and we pay them for their time and effort. So at this point, you're just asking
Speak up, please.
use them in another capacity, and at this time, that would be the Public Works Director.
That is correct. However, we're trying to link the agreement with the activities that we're asking them to do, so it's clearer when we go back and have our audit trail what it was they were doing. I mean, we currently have a master services agreement with Fairgram, but we're trying to ensure that the activities that we're doing fall under a specific agreement, so it's clearer for people to understand what's going on, and also it's easier to go back and find out, what those services delivered.
Alderman Sanders?
Yeah, Brother Boyer, I know that you got a mountain, a hill that you're trying to climb, and I expressed my whole thing about what the scope of what you're doing. It's like you're dragging a big old iron ball behind you, trying to get up these hills, and I'm just trying to figure out a way. Could we find help within the ranks or our workforce to give you all of the assistance that you need? Is that a possibility? Is that on the table? Could that be on the table where we can try to figure out within how can we support you in those efforts?
Actually, I'd like to answer that. The best way that we can support him is by the suggestion that he's put out there that he does need help, and he's asking for the council to approve Fairgram to assist him.
She just had to throw that in there, didn't she? But anyway, yeah, Mac, I'm glad you're in this position. I don't know if you're gonna ever leave here without a whole head of gray hair. But we're gonna treat you like we treat Obama. You're gonna leave this city chamber all gray and broke down. But anyway, I just wanted to let you know that I support what you're doing. And I may not like everything that you're doing, but I support what you're doing. You know.
Madam Mayor?
I was just wondering if it's okay with the council, a representative from Fairgram actually had some input. Is that acceptable?
Sure.
Yes.
Sure.
I just wanted to say that working with Rob, we made this a time and materials contract because we do other work for the city. And that way, if it's less, it's less, and we're not locked into any price. That we've thought that was the most fair way to work with the city, because we do work on other projects. So when we're working on those project works, that's not directly working for Public Works.
Alderman Clem?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to adopt resolution number R-2033-45.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor made by Alderman Clem, seconded by Alderman Shadle.
Which ordinance is that?
That's the one we were just discussing on the hiring of Fairgram for the, up to the $100,000.
So, Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll?
Let me note that Alderwoman Simmons returned. Stacy?
No.
Shadle?
Aye.
Sanders?
No.
That was a no. Sellers?
No.
Clem?
Aye.
Simmons?
I'm gonna have to say aye.
Aye. That is a tie, 3-3. Mayor, what say you?
Aye.
The resolution is adopted 4-0. 4-3. 4-3, thank you.
Item number 13 is the adoption of Resolution 2023-46. Could you please read this?
Resolution approving engineering with Fairgram for preparation of an Illinois Environmental Protection Agency water project plan.
Thank you. Manager Boyer.
Thank you, Your Honor. The Illinois Environmental Protection Agency requires municipalities to create water system capital improvement plans and then additionally submit professional IEPA project plans for state agency approval. These plans must be prepared by an engineer and require state agency approval in order to submit for state revolving funds or SRF loan applications for low interest water system improvement loans. Plans include financial projections per project to use user rates to pay for improvements over 20 years, which is a requirement of the funding. IEPA project plan approvals are only good for 5 years, and then they must be renewed by the municipality to the agency. Freeport's current plan expires this fiscal year. The existing citywide IEPA water system project plan is expiring. The city has used the IEPA state revolving fund loan process as the main funding source for the vast amount of water system work that has been done over the last 12 plus years in Freeport. The IEPA SRF funding program has potential opportunities for forgivable funds towards infrastructure improvement projects. Fairgram has created the best has been instrumental with the city's water system project planning, to which Freeport has been the beneficiary of significant forgivable monetary awards on numerous projects. Fairgram's team of professionals have the expertise and knowledge of the water system and IEPA planning process and documentation requirements to accurately work with the city staff to create a comprehensive plan that is beneficial to the city and our utility for the next 5 years. Funding for this project is through the water operating budget. I just make a correction there. The total cost of these professional services is estimated at $77,500. Fairgram is committed to completing the required planning before the March 2024 submission deadline. Staff recommends the city approve moving forward with the approval of this contract with Fairgram for water system, CIP, and project planning. Their team has superior knowledge of the existing city infrastructure, the IEPA funding source, engineering and project planning and requirements. Responsive and efficient government prioritizes the investment in planning and projects in the city's water system infrastructure for long-term sustainability and reliability. Approval of this proposal provides the necessary resources to create a comprehensive 5-year plan.
Madam Mayor.
Alderman Clem.
Manager Boyer, is this basically the way that it's been handled in the past? Because I know we talked about the recent funding on the phase 1 of the Hancock plant and everything else. Is that based on a similar contract to that where we started out on, or is this a different type?
Well, in order to have access to the SRF funds, we have to have a water distribution, system plan. So in the past, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to completely answer your question on the wastewater side. It's kind of a little bit of a different animal. We've been talking about the wastewater treatment plant. Yes, there has been a plan for that. But on the drinking water side, it's more about our planned infrastructure increases like the Burchard water treatment plant that's recently been or nearing completion up on Burchard Hill. And then the necessary upgrades we're going to need to do at Willow, for instance. Right now we have well 9 with no treatment. We'll be looking at a new well there for additional redundancy and a treatment plant that would include iron filtration. That might solve a lot of problems on that particular area of the distribution system. On top of that, we are looking at water main replacements, and we received millions of dollars in grants regarding water main replacements, and that's part of the way we've been able to fund those. As everyone knows, we do have a history of water main break occurrences. That is largely due to the composition of the materials used in our water distribution system. It's called spun cast, and we have about 40 to 50% of our distribution system that has spun cast. So in order to access funds moving forward in the next 5 years, we need to have this plan completed so that we will have access to funds to help us with those water main replacements. And that's just one of many uses of the funds.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor?
Alderman Stacy.
Yes, is this the project where the water bill went up $3.35 per resident?
Are you asking me, Alderwoman Stacy? I guess you are. Just to answer, to give you the best answer, no, this is not related to that. This is related to the fact that we need access to future revolving loan funds, as well as access to forgivable loan funds, which if we do not have this plan in place, we will not have access to either of those sources for future projects.
Attorney Zito has a comment.
And again, just to kind of maybe put a different summary on this again, the issue that's before you is that one of the biggest ways that the city pays for water improvement projects is through grants and loans, low interest loans from the IEPA. But in order to even be able to qualify to apply for those grants and loans, we have to have this capital improvement plan in place. They're only good for 5 years. So every 5 years, we have to have this plan done. We need an engineer to draft the plan so that they can be submitted to IEPA so that we can then qualify in the future to get loans and grants. That's what this contract with Fairgram is about. We need an engineer we need to pay an engineer to create this plan for us, and we have to do this basically every 5 years so that we can continue to get grants and loans from the IEPA.
And what is it going to cost the city to have this engineered plan?
It is $77,500.
Madam Mayor?
That's in the memo. Alderman Sellers?
Yes, I just want to know, where are we going to get this $77,000? I know you said capital improvement, but don't we have, where are we getting? And so the $60,000 to rebuild is coming from the extra money that we're putting on people's water bill, right? And the 77,000 is coming from where?
So the increase that you're referring to, the $3, I believe, and 35 cents, that was on the sewer portion, and that is necessary to move forward with the wastewater treatment plant upgrades and
But truth be told, that 60,000 is only phase one of 5. If I am not mistaken.
Yeah. Well, let me try to answer that. So the phase one wastewater treatment plant upgrade is one of a multi-phased approach. I believe there will be 2 to 3 phases depending upon what is required and how it all works together. And that was the increase of that was the overall cost of that was about $60 million for the phase one wastewater treatment plant upgrade. What we're referring to here is using funds from the water operating fund to pay for additional services so that we would be able to write our 5-year plan that would then be accepted by the Illinois EPA, freeing up not only state revolving fund loans, but also potential for loan forgiveness and forgivable loan funds. And the city's also been a beneficiary to the extent of about $6 million so far, because we have the plan in place currently, which is set to expire. We were able to receive up to $6 million for lead service line replacements that's impacted every person in this room's community. So what we are talking about is developing a plan so that the IEPA, we're in compliant with the IEPA's request to ensure that we have a plan in place to use those funds, the future funds, forgivable loan funds or state revolving funds, for water main replacements, for water wells, for increases or improvements to our water and distribution system.
And what's before you has to do with with water project planning. The questions related to the $60 million question has to do with sewer. 2 different things. Alderman Shadle?
This, the way I'm understanding it basically is we're gonna spend $77,500 for potentially getting $6 to $8 million as what happened in the last 5-year segment of this in revolving loans and forgivable. I see that as a pretty good investment.
That's correct. Attorney Zito.
Just one quick question. Is this budgeted for, this expenditure to have the plan created?
This will be involved in the rebudget in the utility budget, but the funds are available. They just need to be apportioned to take care of this particular item.
Got it.
One more question, Mayor.
Alderman Sellers?
Yes, I'd like to know, with this, and we're hiring Fairgram to do this, how much are we paying for all this to be done? How much is that costing the city?
Do you mean the?
You said we need somebody to go in and do the preparation for, getting all
Yeah,
the.
that's in the memo. That's the 77,000.
Oh, so it's going to cost 77,000. So that's what we're paying them to do this
Yes.
project.
Yes, the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency's capital improvement plans. They're fairly detailed. They require a lot of documentation to do correctly, in addition to records being updated and so forth from the various changes that we've had. So the last time this was updated was 5 years ago. There's been significant changes since that time, and it's important to make sure all that's included in the new plan.
Madam Mayor,
Alderman Clem?
I make a motion for adoption of resolution R-2023-46.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor made by Alderman Clem, seconded by Alderman Shadle, as stated. If there's no further discussion?
I just have one more question.
I think Alderman.
Alderman Simmons?
sought out, sorry, have we sought out bids from other engineering firms to see what they would charge to do the same?
In this particular case, or in most, we could go out for a statement of qualification. However, that has not been done in this case due to the fact that Fairgram has a tremendous amount of records. There's a lot of work there that would not have to be redone by an outside firm. So, because they've been doing it for a number of years, they're very familiar with all the information required to communicate it successfully, and they've shown a record of success for many years here, at least for the last 5 to 7 years.
Alderman Sellers, did you have, no?
All right, because,
Alderman Clem, did you have some?
What?
I know somebody had wanted to speak. I
yes,
wasn't
I
sure.
did, but
I did.
Rachel asked my question.
Okay. Alderman Sanders?
Yeah, Brother Boyer, like my sister was saying earlier about the bidding process. What are we saying? We're just going to close out biddings to any other agency, contractors and anything like that?
Attorney Zito wanted to answer that.
So with regards to bidding, when you're talking about professional services like an engineer, that is one of the items, that's one of the categories that a municipality does not have to go out to bid because they're professional services.
Okay.
Okay, so professional services, engineers, accountants, lawyers don't have to be bid. I think the reason why this was not particularly bid is that it is highly unlikely that any other firm could come in, get themselves up to speed with everything that's going on in Freeport as far as water projects goes, and then draft this plan and do it for less than what Fairgram has proposed, because they have the track history with us. They have all that historical knowledge already that a new firm wouldn't have there. So rather than, to save the cost of having to go out for statements of qualifications or go out for bid and, publish in the newspaper and do, work up all that paperwork, that's why the city will typically just direct award this to a professional service company.
Got you.
Well, I do have a question now.
Alderman Sellers?
Just to ask, which 77,000, which, and I do understand, Attorney Cito, but how do you come up with 77,000? Is it because of the time? Is it, that kind of thing? So, I just wanted to know that. How do you come up with that amount of money?
Okay. Would it be okay with the council, if it please the council, have Darren Steekel maybe shed some light on that, Darren?
Is it that time?
Have to wake him up.
Certainly. So basically, we come up with projects that are fixed fees based on hours that we think it'll take to complete. We completed the last 2 5-year studies for Freeport. So we took the history of what we've done in the past. This has to be a 5-year plan. So it's not that we're just creating one plan. In the last 5-year plan, we created, I believe, 15 individual plans within that plan. One of the things that you should know is the project plans or facility plans are what drive getting the forgiveness loan dollars back to Freeport. On the last plan, we had the lead service line replacements in there. So far to date, we've got $10 million in free funding out of that plan that cost $70,000. On the water plant, I believe we got $400,000 worth of forgiveness that was in the same plan. We got, I believe, $400,000 off the water main project that was embedded in that same plan. So that plan has paid for itself many times over just in those few plans. And again, we had a 5-year plan. Well 12 is actually in the current plan, but it's going to expire before we're going to be able to get it built. Aaron said it very well. These plans are only good for 5 years. You are ineligible for funds unless you have a current plan. And again, we factor all the costs of what it will take to our team to supply this plan. And again, it's to your benefit to do a 5-year plan. Some towns don't have the funds and they'll do a 1-year plan, but that ends up costing you more money in the long run, having us reoccur that every year. So we're trying to give you significant savings in providing a multi-year plan that we don't have to keep going back to the well and redraw every year.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, if there's no further discussion, Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll on the passage of this resolution?
Stacy,
Abstain.
abstain. Shadle,
Aye.
Sanders,
Aye.
Sellers,
Aye.
Clem,
Aye.
Simmons.
Aye.
The resolution is adopted with 5 ayes, no nays, and 1 abstention.
Item number 14 is approval of the bid that were open on May 24th, 2023 at 9 a.m. Demolition of 10 buildings. Director Duckman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The City of Freeport has identified 10 properties as chronic nuisances per our ordinances, and accordingly, the city has followed through with the statutory fast-track demolition process in order to raise these blighted properties. All demolitions are funded by the Neighborhood Housing Fund, and bid number CD 002-2023 for the demolition and asbestos abatement of 10 properties was published in a Journal Standard on May 7th, and the bid opening was held on May 24th. The city received bids from 3 contractors. 2 provided individual and lump sum pricing, and only 1 provided individual pricing. And I provided an analysis in the memorandum. And based upon the analysis of and a result from the bid opening on May 24th, staff recommends issuing contracts to Northern Illinois Services, Fisher Excavating, and Albert & Son Earthworks. And the total there is $122,285, and it breaks down where Northern Illinois Services will receive $9,200 for the demolition of 124 South Blackhawk. Fisher Excavating is going to receive $44,885 for the demolition of 526, 528 West Douglas, 307, 309 East Pleasant, and 415 West Broadway. And Albert & Son will receive $68,200 for the demolition of 517 West Douglas, 647 North Waddell, 811 North Warren, 607 East Winneshiek, and 116 South Blackhawk, and 750 West Homer Street.
Questions?
Madam Mayor,
Alderman Clem.
motion to approve the bid as presented.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion on the floor made by Alderman Clem, seconded by Alderman Shadle, to receive the bids as presented.
Do we have discussion?
Sure.
Go ahead.
Okay. I would just like to understand how we choose what demolitions would take place first. I mean, there's so many houses that need tearing down.
Yes, but
And why did we start where we're starting?
yes, thank you. I appreciate the question, and I can assure you I never lose hope. While the task is certainly a challenge, you have to take a systematic approach to it. And so one thing I talked about in the orientation was increasing the number of inspections, which leads to the increased number of chronic nuisances, which eventually leads to the increased number of fast-track demolitions. So in this situation here, I talked about how the city has identified 10 properties as chronic nuisances. And what that means is that these properties in a 6-month period have received a judgment saying that they have 3 violations in a 6-month period. They haven't simply been issued a warning. They've actually gone through the administrative hearing process and received those at least a minimum of 3 and 6 months. So that is essentially the basis of how these properties were identified.
I have a question.
Alderman Simmons.
I noticed that no properties from over by Taylor Park School are on here. Is that a different process, or are they not being demoed at this time?
Well, I'll put it to you this way. Many East Side properties are going to be in our PDM buyout program. So that's one area where on the East Side, I'm just talking about an area that we may not be doing a fast track demolition. And that area, we have a buyout program on the east side for fast track demolition. Other than that, the city is not taking a stance that you're in this area, we're not going to run you through the fast track demolition process.
That'd be a different pool of money?
Correct. And as of this year, the city has already used the FEMA money, FEMA pre-disaster mitigation money, to demolish 8 buildings that were demolished earlier this year.
And you anticipate more, correct?
I have 6 that are already purchased that will be upcoming in addition to the 8, and I'm in the process still of trying to schedule 28 closings because they're voluntary. Those are voluntary buyouts, so there is no essential pressure the city's putting on any property owners. If we make an offer to a property owner on the east side and they say, I do not want to sell, the city's not going to buy it, and then the city's not going to demolish it.
I guess I'm asking that because there are properties that have fallen in on themselves,
Mhm.
and they should definitely be fast-tracked because they are a hazard. So what I'm getting from what you're saying is properties over there can look and do and be in whatever condition, and they will not be demoed unless they sell to the city?
That's not 100% true, but many of the properties that you see may not, I can't say because we're talking here, we're not looking at specific properties, but many of those properties that you're speaking of are actually owned by somebody, have had an appraisal, and we're waiting on that property owner and giving them a timeline to say, okay, are you interested in this? Are you interested in scheduling your closing? So we can sit down and talk about any specific properties on the east side that you think should be fast-tracked, and I can assure you, I can look into that and let you know the whole process or history behind that particular property. But just because you see it, there's a good chance that somebody may have owned it, signed up for that grant program, and we're just awaiting on whether it's closing or not.
Okay, so just so I'm clear, you're not fast-tracking any properties in that area?
That's not true. I'm not fast-tracking it. If somebody has shown interest if they've expressed written interest, which was a notice of voluntary interest form.
Right,
and
outside of the mitigation grant is my question. People who are not, they've pretty much abandoned the properties?
I would pursue a fast-track demolition in that instance, yes. If they've not signed up, if the property owner did not sign a voluntary interest form, and they've not taken care of their property, and you were to come to me and say, Wayne, this particular address, the first thing I would do is look for it to see if it's in the FEMA grant, and if it's not, then I would go through the process of code enforcement, eventual fast-track demolition.
And so the ones that have agreed to, excuse me, talk to you about or sell, those will be on a separate, like it's handled separately than what we're looking at?
It is, and I think it was before you took council, but this year I know I took 8 properties, and 8 properties were demolished from that pool of money this year.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mayor Miller,
Alderman Sellers?
Yep. I would just like to ask the question. I know that my phone keeps going in and out. I know that I see on here that you have, so you mainly go by the lowest bid, right? Is that how you mainly go by the lowest bid? It's not, is that what you
Yes,
mainly look
yes,
at?
it was open bid, and we go with the lowest bid, yes.
Okay. And then just looking at how do you think, or how do you feel that the quality of work from taking down the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 buildings with one company versus, another company only gets 1, and how do you feel that it would be a good, take down and, doing it properly instead of a fast track getting it done because I've got 6 or 7 of them I got to get down?
Well,
If they can handle that many.
I have full confidence that every one of these contractors could do all 10 because they bid on all 10. If that makes sense. So yes, I think that they could demolish anywhere from 1 to 10 properties.
And you said it's 3, if they get 3 violations in 6 months, or how did that go?
Right. So to become a chronic nuisance property, you need to get judgments on 3 violations in a 6-month period. So if one violation gets pushed out in our system, then they wouldn't qualify for chronic nuisance. They have to get 3 judgments.
So when you say 3 judgments, it's not, they go before the judge?
It's an administrative hearing officer.
Yeah, they do that 3 times within 6 months.
Yes, and they have to say chronic, yes, they have to agree to it. And then they also have to be deemed a chronic nuisance. So you have to present to that, afterwards you have to present to the administrative hearing officer saying they've had the 3 judgments, you present that to our hearing officer, and then they make a decision on whether or not it's a chronic nuisance.
So what does it mean with the orange sign on buildings that
That's your statutory fast track. So every property on here is a chronic nuisance, which is one designation, and they've also gone through the statutory fast track demolition, which is the orange sign.
Okay.
So first they became a chronic nuisance, and then the city looked at that and said, okay, now we're going to go through the fast track demolition process.
Okay, so if we see properties with orange signs, are they?
The only chance that they would not be demolished is if you would not approve this bid, or if you were to, or if there was the person who has a statutory fast track has the right to petition against it in a legal court. So if they petition against it, if you see it outstanding, it's either because the council didn't approve the demolition or because it's somebody petitioned with an attorney against it.
No, I'm asking also, I know of some properties that have the orange sticker that I don't see on the list, so that's why I guess I'm asking, how do those properties come down that are very dangerous in?
I would have to see. I mean,
Okay.
I'm pretty, I'm not perfect, but I'm pretty thorough. I like getting them torn down, so I hope I didn't miss one, but I could figure that. If you bring it to me, let me know.
I will. Thank you.
Yep.
Mayor? May I ask? May I ask
Oh,
something?
yeah, I'm sorry.
Director Duckman, could you explain to at least the new council the discounted price and the lump sum, and that they could have gotten all of them?
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. Yes, I can explain that. So it's a typical, on your memo, there's a analysis, which is a spreadsheet, and on the left you have your properties, and on the columns, the rows are your properties, and the columns are your companies that bid. And if you look to the bottom row, it says the total of the individual properties and lump sum. So if you were to add all the individual prices together for Albert & Son Earthworks, you would see it would be $128,600. And they're telling us that if they were to get a lump sum price, it would be $127,000. And the same for Northern Illinois Services, they did the same thing. They gave us a discounted price for doing all 10. And then on the far right, you have a column that says lowest bid by individual property. That's where we take the lowest bid of each of those and then put that in that column. And then when you add those up, you have the $122,285, and it shows you that it is lower than any of the lump sum discounted prices.
Alderman Clem?
Yes, 2 items if I could. First, Wayne, congratulations on having 3 to 4 bids on these. I know over the years that's really tough to do, and also I'd like to mention, because you said you had more, it might be, I remember years ago there was lists, over and above these that you've got on your radar, or things you got might be good to get to the council, but great job on these. Appreciate it.
You're welcome, and I can certainly hand that to anybody who wants to see it. I can get that to you.
Alderman Simmons?
Are any of these houses inhabited, like, do people live in any of these properties?
No, these are vacant properties, and that's part of the state law requires to do a fast track that they have to be vacant, not lived in.
Thanks.
Okay.
Okay, there is a motion and a second.
So moved.
Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll on the bid as proposed?
Stacy?
Aye.
Shadle?
Aye.
Sanders?
Aye.
Sellers?
Aye.
Clem?
Aye.
And Simmons.
Aye.
The motion is approved, 6-0.
Then item number 15 is approval of the bid that was open on the 31st of May for demolitions of 10 more buildings. Director Duckman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The city of Freeport has identified 10 properties as chronic nuisances per our ordinance, and accordingly, the city has followed through with the statutory fast-track demolition process in order to raise these blighted properties. Again, in this situation, all demolitions are funded by the Neighborhood Housing Fund. The bid for demolition asbestos abatement of these 10 properties was published in a Journal Standard on May 7th, and it was opened on May 31st. Staff received bids from 4 contractors and all provided individual and lump sum pricing. In the memorandum, I provided the analysis to you all. And based on that analysis, staff recommends issuing contracts to Kleckner Excavating, Fisher Excavating, and Albert & Son Earthworks based on the following breakdown. And again, the total price here would be a total of $134,750. So Kleckner Excavating in this situation would be awarded $47,750 for the demolition of 727 South Float, 729 East Wyandotte, 816 South Ottawa, and 710 South Beaver. Fisher Excavating would be awarded $18,950 for the demolition of 702 South Carroll, and Albert & Son would be awarded $68,050 for the demolition of 714 South Ottawa, 488 South Ottawa, 621 South Benton, 558 East Illinois, and 103 East Empire.
Alderman Shadle?
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor made by Alderman Shadle, seconded by Alderman Clem to approve bids as stated. Questions on these? Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll?
Stacy?
Aye.
Shadle?
Aye.
Sanders?
Aye.
Sellers?
Aye.
Clem?
Aye.
And Simmons.
Aye.
The motion passes 6-0.
Item number 16 is reports of department heads. Finance?
Nothing this evening, Your Honor.
Thank you. Community development?
Nothing tonight.
Do we have anything with public works this evening?
Not tonight, Your Honor.
Thank you. Fire?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. Late last week, the fire department responded to 2 structure fires. The first one was located at the 700 block, South Miami. That was a residential single-family home. Loss estimate at this time is roughly $50,000. The second fire was a garage fire located on Maple Street. That structure was a total loss estimated at $10,000. There were no injuries sustained during those activities of firefighters, residents, or pets.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Police?
Yes, Your Honor. I'll just give you an update on some of our training processes through dispatch and our hiring process with the police officers and records. So as some of you know, we were down to only 7 trained dispatchers at one point, with at that time 2 in training. However, we are now at 9 trained dispatchers. Those 2 have been released, which is good. We also have 2 additional ones in training as well, and are working on interviewing for that last spot. We have an approval of 12 dispatchers. Right now, we also have 2 officers that were recently released from the field training program, so they're out there on the streets. They're on their own now. We have 1 that's now still in the field training program, as well as 3 that are in the academy. 2 of them, I think, are in week 6, and 1 is in week 4. We're scheduling testing for the police officers this Saturday at 8 o'clock. So we'll be doing the written test and the physical agility test on that day. We already have 1 that's set to go to the academy in August. And I am starting to schedule interviews this week for our social worker position that's currently open. And the deputy chief, he has been interviewing candidates for the records clerk position. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Library?
I have can I ask?
Oh,
a
sure.
question? Yes. I'd like to know, I know we got information on there was some drug overdoses. What was that? Just to let people know what's out there and what to be aware of. What do you ever know? Did you ever find out what it was, or do you know anything?
The substances that were collected, those cases were managed by the Illinois State Police State Line Area Narcotics Team. So that would be sent to the lab for confirmation. So we'd probably just wait till we get an actual confirmation on that before I'd make any comment on that.
Okay, thank you.
Library?
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to talk a little bit about our event that we had today. Today is our first day of summer reading, and we do a kickoff party annually. This year is the first year we got to do it outside, so we did it in a section of our parking lot. We had about 350 people attend, 230 teens and children signed up for reading, and we had 125 adults supervising those kids. And we did sign up at least 15, but probably closer to 30 new library cards today. So it was a little tired over here, so, but it was a really, really good day. So.
Good, thank you. Communication?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to remind the council members and any of the listening public that the June newsletter is out. If you have questions about any of the information within the newsletter, feel free to reach out to me. But also on Saturday, this past Saturday, the city held a river cleanup day. That was on our environmental and regulatory compliance officer. She was the one who organized that. And that was a really successful event because we ended up picking up 4 garbage bags worth of trash, 9 tires, a broken down TV, and a variety of other larger items of junk from our river tributaries and the Peck River. So many thank you to all of the volunteers that showed up, and then the city staff that helped arrange it. Myself and Manager Boyer were out there. So it was a great way to spend our Saturday morning. Thank you.
Thank you. IT? And Deputy City Manager?
Thank you, Your Honor. First thing I'd like to report on is that the taxiway, by the hangars, the hangar taxiway area that we were hoping to have paved a couple of years ago before COVID kind of hit, was able to be completed this past week or two. So that looks like a real nice project for us. They had to raise a couple of the storm sewers inlets, but everything went well with that. Secondly, the Northwest Illinois Air Show will be held on September 17th at the airport beginning at 1:30. And then just a reminder for council that the actuary study that Mr. Reitz gave today will be on your consent agenda on the June 20th City Council meeting. So make sure that you review it because that is a very important document. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Just one thing I'd like to, where did you say you paved? I'm sorry, I missed it.
The hangar taxiways by the airport, on the airport, I should say.
City Manager.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just wanted to report that we had a successful meeting with Laura Polistrini from Darren LaHood's office as we continue to try to work out options to move forward with the mill race project. So just wanted to post that.
Thank you. And to piggyback on that, LaHood's office suggested that we do a broader collaboration of Senate, Congress members, to everyone come to the table. And so I was able to reach out to Senator Duckworth's office this afternoon and Congressman Sorensen's office, and they are both going to come to the table on Wednesday. So pleased with that to be able to discuss with them what our options might be as well. And then also just to remind everyone, today started the first day of the new garbage pickup with Gills. So if you put your garbage out and it didn't get taken today, it's probably because your schedule changed. So if you're not sure of what your schedule is, you can check the city website or you can call Gills. With that, we'll move on to new announcements. Alderman Stacy, did you have any new announcements?
No.
Thank you. Alderman Shadle?
I just want to acknowledge all our department heads. It seems like tonight, everybody was stepping up. Finance was dealing with the audit in the past weeks, and I know that takes time. Mr. Duckman was dealing with tearing down buildings and along with the everyday deals. Kurt helped new aldermen with getting set up with their computers. Fire chief's got an ongoing battle with fires, and we have a new police chief that's been acting. And Ashley had 250 people sign up for a summer reading program, so kudos to all.
We agree. Alderman Shadle? Sorry, I said that wrong. Sanders?
Yeah, all of the department heads that I spoke to today, I'd like to set up a time meeting where we can talk about some issues that some of my residents are having, and they want to make their complaints and stuff, but I know who can handle the job, so that's basically it.
Thank you. Alderman Sellers?
I have nothing at this time.
Thank you. Alderman Clem?
I got a couple things, Your Honor. First, congratulations, Chief Chris. I appreciate having you as a chief and look forward to working with you over the next period of time here. I'd like to thank my wife for 53 years of marriage tomorrow.
All right.
And one thing I'd like to bring to the cow meeting, if I could, I'd like to take a look at seeing what we can do about capping / slowing down / analyzing our gaming in the city of Freeport. I believe we have far too many, and I believe there are other people that do. I'm not looking to eliminate 10,000. I'm looking to do something with the process that we're going through. I'd like to take a look at number of machines per person, how many licenses we have, you know, that type of stuff, just so we can start at the cow next week and address it and see if there's something that we're in agreement on that we can talk about and bring forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Simmons?
No, I don't have it.
And then we'll move on to public comment. We have Fred Wagner.
You're still here, Fred.
You forgot
If you could use
Alderman
the, if you could use the microphone, that'll help.
Well, if you can hear me, I'll just do it this way. Is that all right?
Yeah.
I've been in several positions in my life where I was to be trusted, to do the right job, to have faith put in me. And I've also been in positions where I had to have faith and trust in the people who are working for me. Now, I'm losing a little bit of faith in one of the things that's offered by the city of Freeport. That's how my garbage is collected. You gave me a segue there a little while ago, and I appreciate that. For years, the city, and I'll read, for years the city contracted a business to collect and dispose of our trash. Currently, Gill collects the trash in Freeport, and as trash is transferred from hopper to truck, some of the trash escapes, and I find it blowing around my yard, paper bags, so I spend a little time picking up plastic and cans and other things. I did make a phone call to Borman, and he was my former alderman. Didn't get an answer. Sent an email. Sent another email, and I said, at least you can get back to me. He got back to me through an email and said, have you contacted Gill? Not exactly what I wanted to hear. Originally, garbage went into a truck and was buried in a landfill. Eventually, trucks were equipped to sort and recycle various items at the curb. This is about 30 or 40 years ago, I think. Blue bins were provided to separate the recyclables. The drivers would put the glass, paper, etc. into divided areas of the truck. Seemed like progress. We were encouraged to do the environmentally right thing. Most of us follow the rules. I recently watched Gill pick up garbage and recyclables. Both containers were dumped into the same bin, thrown right into the truck. And I called Gill, asked for the reason. I'm told that everything is taken to Rockford where the garbage is separated from the recyclables. I called Mr. Clem and he gave me an answer. He answered the phone and he talked to me and he echoed the same message. Sounds like a disgusting way to handle trash. After talking to my friends, I learned that this has been the practice for years, especially by Gale for routes in the country. I believe that mooring disposal kept the garbage separated, but I can't be so sure about that. There's where my faith maybe is falling down. If everything's going into the same hopper, maybe we should just get rid of one of the garbage containers. I have 4 now. I have 2 one for recycling, trash, and I get rid of my landscape. So on Thursday, I guess I can assume that all 4 are going to go in the truck, unless I know something different. Doesn't sound very pleasant. They'll be combined with rotten garbage, plastic, cardboard, yes, diapers, kitty litter, dog feces that people pick up, and dead animals that might be around. Sounds like a pleasant way to spend an afternoon in Rockford. I imagined separating all of this from plastic bottles. I don't think this is what you signed up for. Is recycling worth the effort? Maybe we should get to the point where we're just throwing it all in a big hole again, or burning it like we used to do when I was a kid.
Thank you, Mr. Wagner. Your 3 minutes is expired.
Yeah, well, that's great.
Thank you. We also have James Ryan that was signed up.
Madam Mayor, alderpersons, both old and new, and city management team employees. I'm sure you have, or at some point, you will hear complaints of residents at city council meetings. I'm happy to inform you this is not one of those times. I am actually here to applaud and say thank you for responding to a situation that demonstrated one of the very best displays of public citizenship and, unfortunately, one of the very worst. A few weeks ago, County Board member and former Alderman Ronnie Bush filed a complaint against a property owner that has been negligent in making repairs to a home that he purchased approximately 2.5 years ago. The house has become an eyesore on the street. In response to Mr. Bush's complaint, the property owner spray painted obscene gestures on the home and wrote, "Ronnie Bush is a racist." He then modified the message by adding scriptures from the Bible. Unfortunately, placing lipstick on a pig does not change the fact that it is still a pig. Imagine going to bed at night and rising in the morning to see an image that looks like this. Everyone has the right to speak freely until a person makes a baseless claim and demeaning statements about another person's character. This type of public display of displeasure is unacceptable and should not be allowed in any part of our city. Without an allowance for time, I cannot go deeper into the issue. Therefore, I am regulated to simply say thank you for moving swiftly on this issue, especially to all the persons Sellers, Stacy, Gage, and Sanders, along with the NAACP, for making sure this issue remained on your radar. And to the mayor and city officials that found a way to have the property owner remove this hateful message. Lastly, and most importantly, I am sure you know this, there will be time during the life of this municipality that governing bodies in Freeport will be forced to answer, who are we? What are our principles and values for which we stand?
Thank you.
Last week, you answered those questions.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments this evening? Tommy?
Yogi know. Oh, he's coming.
What, Tommy?
My birthday was.
I know, it was your birthday, so I want to give you a card and a cake. Happy birthday, Tommy.
You gonna share that, Tommy?
Bernie?
Bernie Marvella, 1310 South Colina. The debates tonight was very interesting. I've been in town for a number of years. The gentleman that just spoke brought up a situation, and I've seen deterioration in this community for many, many years. Where I live, my value property taxes have been very, very low. This year, they jumped about 70%. Not a big deal, $300 to $500. I'm undervalued to this day, but the properties next to me have been in disrepair. Lately, there's been movement. Somebody bought the three pieces of property next to me. He's trying to do the best he can. Apparently, he's being fined because he's got a lot of junk because there was a lot of repairs that had to be done. I'm giving him some time. I would like the city to give him some time. But at the same time, we're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to tear down buildings. Here's a gentleman that's paid some money to buy these two pieces of property, put a little bit of money into it, and is short on cash. Do we have the funds to invest in people who are trying to invest in the community? I think it's time we change our attitudes and move forward instead of tear down, rebuild. In reference to the garbage, I've talked to, I think, Rob before he was the city manager. I am paying for a 96-gallon container. I don't need it. I got big stairs to go down. I am 76, according to CDC. I only have about 6 months of expected life expectancy left, okay? But I do have an artificial hip, and I have a lot of stairs to go down in the wintertime. 96 gallons is too much. It takes me almost 2 months to fill it. Why can't we get a 35-gallon container for the elderly people? Something to think about. In reference to the water and sewer that you guys discussed at length, glad you did this for the project plan. It's needed going forward. I don't think our system is set up to be able to give you true accountability going forward. That's going to have to happen. But it's going to be expensive, no matter how it's going to be. Our rates went up. I see rates going up all over the place wherever I do good work. And we're still not relatively high. We can still have a little bit to go. But the problem is our medium household income is not where it should be. We need to find out how to increase that. So you guys got a big challenge in front of you. I hope that you keep the discussion moving forward and the city can be proud of what it can accomplish.
Thank you, Mr. McCullough. Okay, that leaves us with item number 21. Madam Clerk, could you please read the executive session for the record?
Pursuant to 5 ILCS 122C2, collective negotiating matters between the public body and its employees or their representatives, or deliberations concerning salary schedules for one or more classes of employees. Also, pursuant to 5 ILCS 122C21, discussion of minutes of meetings lawfully closed under this act, whether for purposes of approval by the body of the minutes or semi-annual review of the minutes as mandated by Section 2.06.
Is there a motion to enter into executive session?
Second.
What, is that you, Joy? Motion made by Alderman Sellers, seconded by Alderman Shadle. Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll?
Stacy?
Aye.
Shadle?
Aye.
Sanders? Is currently absent. Sellers? Clem?
Aye.
Simmons? Motion passes 5